What's the past 18 months been like for you?
The time with, you know what? The pandemic actually for me has been okay. I have been able to work during the entirety of the pandemic, of which I feel very grateful. And then I've gotten to spend an inordinate amount of time with my son that I never would have gotten. And that's been, frankly, incredible, especially as a single parent, to be able to really, I try to spend as much time, obviously, as possible with him, but I feel an extra weight on me as a single parent to really let him see that I'm around.
As long as I've known you, you've talked publicly and privately about wanting to be a dad sometime down the road.
Yep.
And now you are.
Yeah.
How has the reality been compared to those expectations you
It's
had?
actually been an easy ride so far. I mean, it's been, you know what? It's been all right. I thought that it was going to be completely overwhelming, and I actually feel like he has been trying to make it easy on me a little bit. And he's a good guy. He's very nice. He's very sweet. Daddy? He's becoming a three-nager. Is that the term?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that just started last weekend. And so that was interesting. We were supposed to have a movie night Friday night, and I was so excited about it. But he then started to show his will, and I had to take the movie away. And guess who was the real loser in that? Me. Because I was then screwed on a Friday night. I was like, what am I doing?
Right, now you got 2 hours to fill.
Exactly. I was actually more upset than him that I took the movie night away. So I'm not sure what lesson was taught.
What's he into, like, in terms of movies, and what's his
You know
thing?
what? He has not watched much TV or movies just until this summer. And so what he's really into right now is Sesame Street.
Great.
Which is great. And I let him watch it on the weekends. It's his treat. No TV during the week. And I will say, I screen an inordinate amount of Housewives, and he's always coming up to my desk while I'm watching, and I'm like, no, you are not watching this. You are not watching this. He saw me grilling Erica Jane on a Housewives reunion the other day. He's like, Daddy? I'm like, yes, but no. Yeah.
So it sounds like you guys have had all this bonding time, and being a single parent, like you say, has its challenges.
Yes.
How do you navigate that part of it?
Just one day at a time. And luckily I have several jobs, but all of them allow me to be in and out of my home all day. So weirdly, I am almost always around for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with him. So that to me is that's a great amount of continuity for him, where we get to see each other. Now, New York is thumping in a sense, and I'm anxious to be part of the thump. And so I think I keep saying, and my show is going back to live with an audience. So I keep saying, Daddy's going to work, Daddy's going to work. And so we brought him to the clubhouse last week because I wanted him to see that there was a place that was work.
Right.
And he quite enjoyed it. I forgot that the shelves are basically all toys.
Right.
And he's like, this. He wanted to take it. I'm like, that's taped down. You can't have that. It's not a toy.
Don't touch Julie Andrews' tea bag.
Yes,
Is
he
that
was
still
trying
there?
to get to Julie Andrews' tea bag.
No.
Funny that you say that. Yes.
That's,
Tamra's implant he was trying to get to. Like, this is not a toy. This was in someone.
Your parents are a big part of your private story, but also your public story,
They
where
are.
like they're on the show and the audience loves them.
Yeah.
They seem to be thoroughly enjoying this ride that you were on.
They are, but the ride that they are most enjoying is the curveball that I threw them at 50 years old of giving them another grandchild.
Yeah.
Because this was the kid that no one saw coming. Even as the years went on, I would say, I still want to have a kid. And my mom would say, it's not happening. Like, really? Oh, okay. You're flying to LA for a party right now. When are you gonna have a kid? So I proved them all wrong. And it's one of the great joys of having my son is watching his relationship with his grandparents, who are well into their 80s, and who FaceTime with him every night at dinner.
And how lucky, I feel that way too about my parents, that your son will have a relationship with them. He'll know them.
The grandparent-child relationship is so magical. And I remember great times with my grandparents and sleeping over there. And they give your kids something that you can't. And it's just so exciting. It's sweet. That to me has been an incredible side benefit from this entire journey.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show
In a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
I've been on Watch What Happens Live over Zoom.
Remotely,
Remotely a couple of times.
Yeah.
So what was it like for you to, because we all experience this in one form or another, to do that show over Zoom? Because so much of that, anyone who's been in that clubhouse, is the crackle of the back and forth.
Right. It was weird. It was highly efficient, which I loved.
Yeah.
We are doing the show at 1:30 in the afternoon, and we will be done at 1:55. And then you can go about your day. So it felt fake for a long time. And I was doing my own makeup to horrible results and really not seeming to care for a very long time what I looked like going on television. I didn't monitor what I was putting out there.
Too much, too little? What was the problem? Yeah.
Everything. Didn't care. Just was like, once I did the show I was doing it from my office for a big chunk of time and had left the Grateful Dead playing for the entire show. And they called me after the show and said, "We're detecting music." I said, "Oh, I left the Grateful Dead channel on for the whole show." They're like, "We're gonna hope no one notices." And I believe no one noticed. So there was my show is already homemade, as it were, but it was real Scotch tape.
I think I sort of sympathize with that. We all got a little too comfortable with our home studios.
Yes.
What we're wearing on the bottom, what we look like. I stopped,
Who was wearing anything on the bottom?
Not a lot.
Yeah, no.
What'd you do, shorts and flip-flops?
I was barefoot. I wore,
Yeah.
I did it out in the Hamptons for 4 months, and I would jump in the pool and then be in a wet bathing suit. I'm gonna skip the makeup today. It's fine. I was a runaway train.
So
I was a runaway train.
When you're in that studio, you've created such a space. What is the magic of that show to you? Why do you think it's taken off the way it has?
I think people respond to the authenticity of the show. I think that, God knows, I screw up every episode. The audience the audience is drinking, the guests are drinking. It's a loose atmosphere.
It's Cake Justin! And thank you, Jimmy, for the shots.
If we spill a cake on the floor, it's about the cake. We follow the action. And I think people respond to that idea that they don't know what's going to happen. The guests can wind up hating each other. We've had guests who literally, you can see them on the air that they hate each other. And the audience then starts, chiming in, and it's fun.
You know what else is true about that show? It's a little like Howard Stern, where by stepping into that studio, you're agreeing to something.
You are submitting to my tomfoolery and my messiness, and you are now you are on the witness stand about your life.
Right.
And so here we are.
And the thing that where a publicist on another show would say you can't ask about that does not seem to apply on your show.
Well, we don't pre-interview our guests, which is great.
Yeah.
So then we can't, it's less trouble to get into. But I mean, there are times when people come in and say, listen, I don't want to talk about the fact that I hate X, Y, or Z.
But one of the genius moves you have is you can put it off on the audience. So-and-so
Yes,
writes.
well, that's true. But we try, listen, I don't want anyone to leave unhappy.
Yeah.
So.
Casting is huge. You often put me on with a housewife.
Yes. We like
and it's great.
high and low. We like big and tall, small and big. I don't know. We like, Yeah.
It's amazing. It's it's the most fun you can have on TV.
Getting the audience back was a big deal. And now that the audience is back and the guests are there, it's what we're supposed to be doing. I'm like, this is why we do it. So I'm very happy to be back.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show.
In a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., a site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Speaking of fun, let's talk about glitter every day. 365 quotes from women I love.
Yes.
What's the idea behind it?
The idea is just basically in the title. This is a book that you can look at every day, have a little splash of glitter thrown on you every day. Women have shaped me for my entire life. From my mom to mentors to the housewives to divas and icons. And so this is a quote a day by a woman that I love. I love a lot of women, and they've said a lot of things. And talk about high and low. We've got Madonna to Malala, Dorinda Medley to Kamala Harris. I mean, it's all over the place.
It's funny you say that. I'm going to jump ahead because I thought this captured you perfectly. On one page, we have a quote from Anne Frank.
Yes.
As I turn the page, Countess Luann.
Thank you.
That's Andy Cohen in a nutshell.
It absolutely is. Two women that I respect immensely and who have different things to offer the culture, but valid nonetheless, Willie. This is the world that we live in, by the way.
We lead off the book with a quote from the great Evelyn Cohen.
My mom.
Her quote is, "Get a hold of yourself, Andy."
Yes.
What was the context of that?
Well, that is a quote that my mom has used over the years that renders me slapped in the face. Get a hold of yourself, Andy. And I will quite literally get a hold of myself and come back to earth. It is it's in her arsenal of, you're a runaway train, you gotta get it together, basically. It's a very simple sentiment from Evelyn Cohen, but one that I respond to.
It feels like it's something you've heard for a long time.
I have.
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
She doesn't, she whips it out when she needs it.
So Evelyn Cohen's the biggest star in this book. I
She
think we
is.
agree.
Yes.
Some huge names in here. Dolly Parton, Madonna. What's the thrust of the kind of person you want? How did you put this list together?
You know what? It's just women I love.
Yeah.
Strong, powerful women with something to say. So that could be anyone that has touched me in my life. I mean, I have a quote from my friend Liza in there that I love that is, only go, oh no, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. So there are quotes in here to live by, and there are quotes in here to laugh by.
Yes.
And I put a little commentary on every page of my own relationship with the women or the quote or just some thought I'm having.
Yeah, I mean, I just love there's too many to list, but you go from Jack Hay to Jill Biden on the same page, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, that's the beauty.
Jack Hay to Jill Biden.
That's the beauty.
Two of our beacons of inspiration.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
And is it true that Hoda Kotb gave you the idea for this book, or at least she encouraged you to write it?
Hodes didn't just give me the idea. I basically just stole the idea from her. She had come out with 2 quote-a-day books.
Yep.
And I happened to be co-hosting with her during the publication of both books, I believe. So I spent a fair amount of time shilling Hode's books. And I thought to myself, what if I did one of these but put my own spin on it? So then, kind of halfway through writing it, I FaceTimed her and said, I need to make sure this is okay with you. Like, do you have another one of these coming out? Because I do, maybe in the fall. Is this okay? She's like, write your book, babe, write your book. There's a couple great quotes from Hoda in there.
Yeah, Hoda's in the book.
Yes, of course.
A nice tribute, and you mentioned her in the acknowledgments.
Yes, well, I mean, again,
Central figure.
She inspired this book completely.
Who in this book would you like to have on Watch What Happens Live who you've not yet had on Watch What
Who
Happens Live?
in that book wouldn't I like to have?
You've
on
had
Watch
some
What
of
Happens
them, a
Live?
lot of them.
Yes. No, I mean, I think Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama has done every show but mine.
Now, what's going on with
Michelle
that?
Obama did The Chew when it was on. I think Michelle Obama has been on CSI. I'm not kidding.
Really?
I think so, or NCIS or something like that. Truly, there almost isn't a show that she hasn't been on except mine. So maybe I should feel good about that.
Okay, so Michelle is the big get.
She's one of them.
Who else is on there?
Madonna's never been on. I've
She hasn't
interviewed
been on?
Madonna. She's never been in the clubhouse.
Oh.
No, she.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, and this is
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show.
In a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30.
We give you a mix of everything you love about our show.
in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., a side of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Yeah.
So many.
Because Madonna is a North Star for you, is that fair to say?
Yeah,
yeah.
she is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love my ladies.
So let's talk about Housewives.
Okay.
15 years.
You know what?
Can you believe that?
Just watched season 16 premiere of Orange County.
And how do we feel?
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
They got the assignment. Yeah.
Let's go back to like 2005 when you're cooking this up.
Yeah.
You never could have imagined what it was going to become, but what did you think it would be back then?
Well, in the best, when it started, it seemed like a sociological time capsule of this group of women who were kind of nouveau riche in a gated community in Orange County, who spoke to their children in a way that none of us had ever seen, and they were just different. And it was while Desperate Housewives was airing, which is how we got the name Real Housewives, because these were the real housewives. And it was a play on real, because of course, much of them wasn't. Now, season 2 of the Housewives of Orange County, we found that Gina Keogh was getting separated. And that was when I leaned in and said, oh my God, this is now a soap opera. This is Knots Landing. And this could go on forever. Did I think I would be sitting with you 16 years later talking about it? Absolutely not. Am I thrilled by it? Yes. They have given me and many others inordinate amounts of pleasure. I would not be here where I am today without them. And that's one of the reasons why I thought it was important to include them in this book, and why it is a mix of high and low, because there are things that they've said that really ring true to me and a lot of other people that I think are worthy of a closer look.
And I don't think we can even call it a guilty pleasure anymore. So many people watch it across. It's just a pleasure for a lot of people across the spectrum.
Yes.
So how has the show, Andy, evolved over the years? So you got Orange County, here comes New York and New Jersey, and you've grown and shown different people and different cultures and different cities.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it has evolved. I have another book out on my imprint called Not All Diamonds and Rosé, which is a oral history of the Real Housewives in its entirety. It comes out in like 2 weeks. And it's great. And you see the evolution of it. I think there was an evolution when, I think there was a moment where people started to really realize they were on TV and they could make a moment. And there are some moments that were made that were incredible on television that we thought, how authentic is it that this woman is taking her leg off in Le Cirque and throwing it to make a point?
Here, go ahead. Go ahead, Heather. Take it. Oh my God.
Maybe not an incredible finale for season, I think, 6 of New York Housewives. But we didn't bring Aviva back the next year because we kind of thought, where do we go from here?
Right.
You've thrown your leg in Le Cirque. Where does the story take us that we could possibly go?
We've been to the mountaintop.
We've been to the mountaintop. So I think that we try to lean into the real, and we try to, go away from the performative. But this is a show now, all these years later, where people know they're on television. We're in the middle of 2 incredible moments. Beverly Hills, something happened with Erica Girardi, one of our housewives, before, as the cameras were rolling, her husband was implicated in a horrible crime. And so we're watching that unfold now and watching the women relate to that and react to that.
And you've expanded your audience by the cities you've chosen and the groups of women you've chosen, right?
It's true. I mean, Salt Lake City, man.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? Another curveball. Mormon Housewives. Look into it.
People want to know, to the extent you can talk about it, behind the scenes, I'm sure it must just be, your phone is texts and phone calls from various housewives who have an issue with something that was in the show, how they were portrayed. How do you manage this universe that you've created?
I think that my senses have been dulled over the years a bit. Maybe I'm a little more, I used to look at my dad and think, how does he exist amidst the chaos, the cacophony of this group of overmodulated, loud talkers that exists in my nuclear family? Myself, my mother, and my sister. But, there's something to be said. There's actually a great quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the book where she said, sometimes we all have to be a little bit deaf and we choose to hear what we want to hear. And I thought that was such a great quote because it's like, some things matter that you hear, some things don't. Maybe, some critiques that you get, tune it out. Something that someone's yelling about, you think, you know what? They're going to be over it tomorrow. I'm not going to take this on.
Right.
So, RBG.
So it's a little bit of psychiatrist, a little social work, a little of that,
Yeah.
right? Just hear them out and let it flush its way through the system.
Yeah.
There are some moments, though, where you can't do that, and I'm thinking about the reunions.
Yes.
Because you are physically in that room.
Absolutely.
And sometimes under assault.
Yes, that is true. But I control the narrative. We're in the midst of, I really had my toughest interview yet with the whole Erica Girardi, Beverly Hills. It's unfolding right now. Unprecedented 4-part reunion that's happening right now because there were that many questions that needed to be answered by Erica.
Isn't it amazing that you created this universe where it's not just the show itself, but there have to be interviews and debriefs. There's a news cycle about the shows you've created.
It's incredible. I opened the New York Post, and I am amazed at the amount of coverage that these women get. It's really dominant.
People who don't know, you started in journalism.
Yes.
At CBS News.
I remain in journalism.
You do remain, as you just described.
Yes.
But you were a hard news producer.
I was.
Working at CBS News. You interned there. You wrote for your school paper at BU.
Yeah.
Do you ever take a minute and say, wow, look how my life has turned. I love that part of my life, but look how things worked out.
I do. I think it evolved as TV news evolved. TV news became a little softer over the years. And so I think people started to become more interested in personalities. And I think that the definition of what is news has evolved as well. So I walk into a Housewives reunion and my attitude is, this is news for a lot of people. I
got to get answers from these people.
Meaningless, of course, but it's a form of news nonetheless. It truly affects no one's daily life.
And yet,
as like the Facebook hearings might.
Right.
But I recognize that it is important to people, and people want me to do a good job.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Willie.
Great to see you.
Happy anniversary. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this for us. It's great to see you.
It's good to be here with you, man.
I told you I just finished the first 2 episodes of season 2, and man, right from the opening credits, it hits you. So for people who are fans of the show in season 1, let's pick up a little bit of where we are exactly and what Bumpy's up to now.
Well, last season he came out of prison from Alcatraz, and he was like trying to regain his power again in the community with the Italians. Some of the maneuvering and stuff made him kill one of the made men there, and that ended up getting him a 5-family sanction for his death. So that's where we ended. Now he's trying to get the sanction taken off of his head. So the first time you see him, he's being pursued by some hitmen who've been sent out to kill him. And he is able to, through the French Connection, shift the balance of power back towards himself.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, 'cause we want people to see it, but the French Connection, as you were just saying, a little bit of homage to the movie that people might pick up as they watch these episodes.
Sure.
So what did you love for us about the character Bumpy Johnson, who we should point out for people who haven't seen it, was a real man. You know, you take some liberties with the telling of his story and the characters that were around him, but it's incredible how you put us in 1964 and what all that means in Harlem in terms of the civil rights movement and Malcolm X being in there and Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay at the time is pulled in. So what was so fascinating to you about not just Bumpy, but this universe when you first heard about it?
When I was first approached with the idea, the thing that was appealing to me was the possibility of getting to explore the political life, getting to explore the civil rights movement, and the criminality that was going on at the time, what was making up society, and this relationship between myself and Malcolm and that community, and the spiritual community and the political community, through Adam Clayton Powell, compelled me to really want to do it. And so what we did was we developed a script. I was a producer at first. I wasn't sure if I was going to commit to acting in it. Then the script got developed. I liked it. I thought we were really on a great directory. And Chris Blancato's a really great writer, and so I decided to step into the project. This last season, I felt really proud of it, but this season is really amazing, actually. I'm excited to even watch some of the episodes again. It's pretty interesting.
I confess I didn't know Bumpy Johnson until season 1 of Godfather of Harlem. Did you know much about him when this project came your way?
I mean, I didn't know him because he'd been in a couple of depictions before. Lawrence Fishburne played Bumpy Johnson. Then there was a couple other portrayals. See him in American Gangster. What I didn't know about him was like the power that he wielded in the community, his philanthropy in the community, his intelligence, and also the strategic person that he was to be able to survive for like 4 decades doing what he does. And I think we explore that really well. It explores family life particularly too. You know, his family life, his wife, his daughter, his granddaughter, and how he's trying to protect them and live the American dream. And that's what he's doing. And the means that he has, he's able to latch on to something that allows him to like rise up out of the barrel, the crab barrel, and get to the top.
There's something, despite what he's doing, being a sort of this criminal mastermind in the head of a crime organization, that's incredibly charming about Bumpy. Did you see something in him as a character when you were reading that? Does there have to be a little of that for it to appeal to you as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, I have to see the whole person. Bumpy is somebody who's loyal. He's somebody who cares deeply about his family, cares deeply about his men. All of us can relate to that. All of us can relate to having a rebellious daughter or, you know, different problems at home and how to structure that. And then being stopped or somebody trying to block you from being able to achieve your successes that are rightfully yours in his mind. He wanted to be a lawyer originally. He applied to, you know, City College in New York, you know, to try to be a lawyer. And he was turned down because of his race and different things of that nature. And so here he finds himself. What options does he have? And this is one of the options that he sees is a real viable option to be able to rise, and he does it.
When you think about a New York mob story, your mind goes to Goodfellas or it goes to De Niro and Pesci sitting at a table somewhere. It seems to me you wanted to take this other piece of that story, and as you said, American Gangster does that too, of what was going on in New York City just a little farther north in terms of crime families and who was wielding power in the city at that time. Did you want to shine a light on that part of it?
That was really interesting, like this sort of battle, struggle for power, for the livelihood with the Italians. It just has great depth in the way it explores it, you know? And one of the things is to be able to see who can be the head of this empire. And that war happens between himself and the other mafia, the 5 families. In a way, his family is like the 6th family.
The relationship between Bumpy and Malcolm X and Adam Clayton Powell and all these fascinating real life figures at the center of the civil rights movement, and that place and time when they're trying to get the Civil Rights Act, and the Voting Rights Act would come later, and all the things that were happening at that time. It's this great stew of culture and what's happening in America, not just a mob story really, but why was that piece of it so interesting to you as an executive producer to be able to elevate that piece of the story?
Well, I think that was one of the most important pieces of it. When I was trying to decide about doing it, I mean, it had been done a few times, Bumpy Johnson, in different ways. The thing that was attractive was that we were going to be exploring the politics of the day and the civil rights movement and activism. I mean, in this season, there's like unbelievable parallels that were already built into the story, you know, that because a lot of the problems that were happening during that time are still prevalent today. And so we do have a strong political movement inside of the 60s with civil rights and with Malcolm. And the riots, Harlem riots occurred during that period of time, as well as the fruit stand riot that also created the Harlem Six. All of these things were going on, and when you explore them, you get to deal with the culture, society, police, relationships within the police department and with us, how the government is trying to set our futures for us, you know, and what choices they make when they get to pass a bill like Adam Clayton Powell does. So we get to walk on a lot of different levels, and at the same time dealing with, like I said, bonding and friendship and family. It's just got a lot for everybody.
When you talk about the parallels today, there's that moment that really stayed with me in one of the first two episodes when you're talking to the French head of his operation.
Right.
And you say, we're both outsiders to this country. The difference is you came here by choice. Somebody brought me here.
I mean, my ancestors were brought here on a boat without their permission. And here we are, and we're trying to fight, and I'm still trying to fight, and all of us are still trying to break through this oppression that's suppressing the people of color and the black race, you know, in particular. And we explore that in the show. We explore it in a real internal and personal way. Like my daughter, you know, has gone and made a large journey from moving and joins the Nation of Islam, and we get to understand a little bit more about that entity and what it meant to the people. And then we're looking at my wife, who is dealing with the feminist movement at a unique time. She started to get involved with that and started to get into the politics of the Voting Rights Acts and trying to make more people vote, bringing people out to vote. So all those things were a big part of the tapestry underneath the umbrella of this mobster story or mafia story.
Did you, as you studied Bumpy, did you start to sympathize with him as a man and his plight and what he was going through, and see him immediately as something more than a kingpin of a mafia family?
Any part I play, I mean, I always kind of look for the human part, or the part that connects with me. Then when I connected with me, when I played Idi Amin in Last King, I had to find a place inside of me that was him and his reasons and his desires. And with Bumpy, there's a lot of understandings that came along from doing this part about when people live by certain rules, and when those rules are broken, what are the consequences of that? He's all the things. He's a chess master, he's a poet, but he's also a mobster, he's also a murderer, you know? In fact, you see him do that in the show a number of times. At the same time, when you're watching him, you start to relate to him, because you can relate to his struggles, you can relate to his failures, you can relate to him being pushed around by more powerful entities and harassed by the government itself.
What do you hope people who watch this series take away from it?
I think that people have to fight for what they believe to try to live a decent life. And I think the show speaks about that, trying to achieve that.
I also have to give you a shout out for your French. Did you speak French before that?
No, but I talked to Chris, and I was like, I think we should let him speak French, because he was in prison for a long time, and this is what different things that he learned, and so we'll see. We'll see if he speaks Spanish next year.
It also was a good side to show, like, I understand what you're saying. I can speak all the languages, I can play your game.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now. Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show. in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast. Free wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The music. I know Swizz Beatz is the executive producer for music on the series, without giving too much away again. Opening the first episode with DMX, which was incredibly powerful given the scene and the music. How important do you think the music is to this show? Because I love it.
Yeah, the music's massive. It sets the tone. It also sets a little bit of like the correlation between yesterday and today. To try to find in a contemporary voice, what is the challenge, what are the struggles? And it's these same struggles, and you juxtapose them to things that we're doing in the film in the past, and you start to realize that that's the heartbeat, the same heartbeat that's been going through as people have been trying to rid themselves of oppression and stuff for years. Swizz does an amazing job. He's amazing, artist, and he's been able to mesh those things in I think a beautiful way.
There's something really cool about, I know I'm in 1964, but I think I'm hearing Nas while this is all happening.
Yeah,
I'm hearing DMX.
Yeah,
Just a
DMX.
cool reading your story for us about how you got where you are. Because when you look at your childhood, you look at a guy who was born in Texas, moves to South Central LA, then to Carson, and was a football star and a straight A student and an opera singer. When's the last time you sung an aria?
I don't know. It's been a long time. I used to sing every once in a while just for fun. I like some of the old Italian songs,
Yeah. Where did the singing come from?
When we were in school, that would be the offering for the groups. The singing group was using classical voice, magical music, and things of that nature. So we joined the Madrigals to sing, and so there was an interest from there. And then I got a music scholarship for voice, and did my first kind of light opera, I guess, the Beggar's Opera, which is kind of the precursor to the Threepenny Opera. And then I went back off to conservatory to study acting some more.
By all accounts, you were good. But you made a choice at some point. You said, okay, maybe this isn't what I want to do with my life. I want to become an actor. What was that decision like for you?
Well, I felt like that's a pretty square box of an art form. Generally, it wasn't going to be reaching the people that I grew up with or the people that I wanted to speak to, too. I wanted a broader reach of what the messages would be to the people. And so I decided that this wasn't the way to go, that it's better to try to express that through acting. And fortunately, I was able to continue school. They gave me a scholarship to study acting as well. And I sang in this little movie recently, a beautiful movie called Jingle Jangle. And
Keegan, yeah.
It was a musical, and I had a great time. It was one of the best experiences I've had working on film my whole career ever.
That was a fun movie. We interviewed him a couple of months ago. We talked to him about that.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's really good. Do you remember how you first experienced movies growing up?
Yeah, it was a big deal for us because we would go to the drive-in theater. Actually, I think it was the Vermont Theater. And that's where I first watched movies for decades into my life. I never went to a walk-in theater, until I was, I don't know, must have been in my teens.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it about the drive-in? Your family just loved it?
It was two things. One, you all come together as a family and you get to sit in the car. And the other was it was cheaper because I think you only had to pay one fee.
Exactly.
And then your whole family could come in.
Throw everybody in the car.
So that was great. And I paid homage to that in a movie I directed. And I made them build a drive-in. It was a movie Hope Floats with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where she goes out on a date and it's at a drive-in theater. So we built the theater there because we were always like, you mean there's no drive-in theaters in Texas? So
I think they've made a little bit of a comeback, sort of a nostalgic drive-in theater. And by the way, the last year or so, it's the best way to go see a movie. So.
Yeah.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., a side of our nation's capital you rarely see.
It's your last movie.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now. Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
You started working pretty quickly for us. I mean, you were 19 or something when Fast Times at Ridgemont High came along.
Yeah.
So you were in the game. As you look back on that movie that a lot of people love so much, what do you think when you see it or when you think about it?
It's hard for me to imagine it's me, actually. He's got his like red jumpsuit on and it looks like a warm-up suit. So cocky and so young and such a long time ago. It was the beginning of a lot of our careers. It was the beginning of Sean Penn's and mine and Nick Cage, and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and all of them. We were all these young actors that were launched in that movie.
Was that experience and the success of that movie, did that encourage you to say, okay, I can do this for a living now? This is going to work for me? Or did you feel like you were still clawing your way up through the ranks?
After I finished that movie, I was in LA studying acting, and I decided I didn't feel I was ready to be put on film. You know, I didn't think I was good enough at that point. So I went back to conservatory and I left LA, went to San Francisco to go study at a conservatory there to try to like get better before I was put on film.
That's incredible discipline for a young man who probably had opportunities in Hollywood to say, I'm not good enough yet. I'm not sure I've heard that before. Usually people dive right in head first.
Sean spoke to me once about it, this movie Bad Boys, and I was like, you know, I can't do that. I gotta get ready. You know, go do some more training stuff. Get
and
better.
Boy, did it work. I mean, you go on this run from '86 and '87 with Platoon, Oliver Stone, Color of Money, with Scorsese, Good Morning Vietnam, with Barry Levinson. What was that like as an actor to get sort of that education from that run of directors?
It's pretty amazing because they're all quite different from each other, really different, but they're fueled by passion. Your passion in your work really creates something amazing. Scorsese, you seem to be really detail-oriented and stuff, and wanted to be precise. And you know, David Fincher, you know, was like really knowledgeable, not just about the acting, but about the camera and stuff. And Clint Eastwood was able to create an environment that allowed things to flow without any breakage or movement. They were all different. You know, Oliver was like madly impassioned about like this story that he was trying to tell, and I was, you know, fortunate to get a chance to work with a lot of some really great filmmakers, you know.
You mentioned Clint Eastwood, Bird, where you won the Best Actor Award at Cannes. Yeah. Still a very young man. What was that experience like?
I was trying to figure out if I should be doing this as a destiny, as it was part of my destiny for a long period into my career. So even after cons and stuff, I was still questioning. Even my family was still like, you want to go back to school and be a teacher?
Really?
Yeah.
You come back from Cannes with the Best Actor Award and they say you should be a teacher?
Yeah, at that time nobody was paying attention. Nobody knew, you know, the people didn't understand that what the cons was even.
Right.
I was trying to find a way. And it wasn't until I think maybe about Last King that I really started to say, okay.
Really? It took you that long?
Yeah, it did actually. I was always trying to figure out if I could get good enough. I talked to this man, this kind of spiritual guy, and I was telling them that every time I play a part, I'm still seeing myself. I mean, I can't disappear. I can't transmutate. I can't change it. You know what I mean? And he's like, well, what makes you think that when you're doing it that it's not real? You know, and I said it's not, because it wasn't until Last King that I was able to change my vibration enough to be able to shift the characters to the degree I wanted to. And I haven't done it a lot. I've just continued to work. You think you know something and you got a handle on it, and then you try to repeat that thing when there was like magic of the unknown before.
Right.
It's like chasing yourself.
That's so amazing, because The Last King of Scotland is almost 25 years into your professional career, and you're saying that's when you finally clicked in. What was it about that part when you said, okay, I think I got this one now?
I remember there was a couple of guys with me, you know, Daniel, and we would always be going around. They had been living in Uganda, that's where they were from. And when I was going around with them and stuff, we would go do everything. Like I go to the mosque, I go to the ocean, I go to this place, I go into the tombs, I go into, you know, what's going on. The entire time while I was shooting the movie, I was working on the character, but I continued to try to experience more about being African and stuff. At one point, they said, you've done it, there's nowhere else to show you, you know. And then they said, I know you don't want to go on safari, but that's a part of Uganda too, you know? And I was like, all right, we'll go.
Did you feel like when you were making that movie for us that this is something special? I mean, your wildest dreams can't go to the Oscar yet, I know at that moment, but did you feel like, wow, this, not just my performance, but with this film, we're doing something uniquely good?
I thought, when I finished, I just said, I've done all I can. I can't do more. If I'm supposed to do this, then it'll manifest itself. And if I'm not, then I'll know, you know?
Yeah, well, it did manifest itself when you were standing up on that stage holding the Oscar, and there's this great moment when you get up there, everyone stops clapping, and you go, hold on, let me just get this moment, and you just were sort of quiet for a couple of seconds. What was that about for you?
I wanted to experience it, being with these people and like in that moment, you know, and not like walk past it, be so overwhelmed that I can't even feel it, you know, that I'm feeling this motion of exaltation, not just a moment of fullness. So I was looking for that, you know, connecting, you know.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? Yeah, 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news. 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses. By the Panther delivered.
All right, it just me too.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
We began our cross-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last one. Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
I don't think most people realize, too, for us, what a prolific director you are. And I knew that. I said to you when you sat down here and you started checking the cameras and the lights. By the way, Scorsese did the same thing. He's like, okay, so we're here and we're here, good, good, good. But Waiting to Exhale, and there are a bunch of movies that you've done and music videos. What do you love about directing a movie different from acting in one?
You create the whole universe outside, you know, and you get a chance to hopefully help people rise to the greatness in themselves when you're working. The actors, the crew, that they feel like they're reaching upward together, and that's kind of cool.
Is it ever frustrating as a director when you're not in the film saying, ooh, I wish I was doing that scene, or I think I could do that a little bit better?
I used to be like, the only time I would get like that would be like, they can't figure out some problem that's Like it's so clear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just go sit in my trailer and just wait till they tell me they're ready. You know?
You directed, I mentioned Waiting to Exhale, Whitney Houston in that movie,
Mhm.
and the music video that went with it
Yeah.
as well. What was it like being around her and her gift, her talent?
She's amazing. I loved her. You know, it was like really special because she put so much trust in me. You know.
We're talking about Godfather of Harlem and parallels to today, and doing meaningful work that explains what's happening in the country now. The same could be said for The Butler or for Fruitvale Station. Is that the kind of work you've always looked for? Are you more focused on that more recently? Obviously, Fruitvale Station is flaring up again right now as we sit here. It's telling us something about our country.
Ryan's a pretty brilliant filmmaker, and he told that story beautifully. And it's a really important story about the abuse and brutality of the police, and when that happens and occurs, and tries to bring you inside of it to understand it. You know, when I met him, he was a young filmmaker. Well, he was in college, and he had an idea, but I could see that he had this sense of purpose and to be able to carry it through. So we started to work on it with him, and he made this, I think, really important film. I think he's done a couple of important films. I think his other film, Black Panther, is also a very important film for the culture, empowering for people. And so I was fortunate to get a chance to see that in the beginning, and now the world is seeing it because of his work.
What do you think when you watch this happening all over again?
I think the cycle of abuse and suppression and stuff has not been stopped. This sort of separatism and racism and stuff has to be dealt with at the core in some ways. The question is how you do that. The protests, I think, brought it to people's minds in a way that, or the uprisings brought it to people's minds more clearly about showing the frustration and the dissatisfaction in the fact that we won't allow that to come forward, continue to happen. And now I think there's a vanguard of people that wouldn't allow it to happen if there was any way they could stop it, who are willing to step up and do so because they did. It's really sad, it's been happening since I was a kid. I mean, a few people on my street were killed by different individuals and different authorities, you know what I mean? And so how do you fix that? When people have to continue to be vigilant and move forward in their way to be able to try to push forward the problem and to clear it out. There's a lot of trauma that's gone on in the nation because of that, as well as obviously the trauma that's occurring because of COVID-19 and stuff. And so there has to be some form of healing that happens and occurs as well to those who are still suffering and struggling through this plight the African American community and people of color have gone through since the beginning of this nation, since the Indians and the natives were here and were abused and discarded. So you just have to find our different ways.
Are you hopeful that we can do better?
I'm hopeful because I see the youth standing up and rising up and speaking out in their voice, and I recognize that those will be the ones who are taking our places, and the nation may slowly through its loss of individuals and the new youth coming up will at least have different points of view, hopefully, in a lot of different places. And I think that people are not just standing idly by and watching things happen, that they're trying to record it, speak about it, protest it, set up places to do it. And I think one of the things that also has to be set up is places of trauma, because I think people have been struggling with this kind of trauma for decades and decades and decades. And so how do you heal while you still continue to fight? And I think that's a question to be answered.
You've reached a point in your career, you've won an Oscar and you've done everything you've done in your career. To hear young actors say, I want to be like Forrest Whitaker when I grow up, I want to have the kind of career he's had where I get to act in good movies and be in good movies that also turn out to be blockbuster movies, and I can direct a little bit and basically do what I want to do. Do you feel like as you start to look back at all the things you've done, you've kind of done it your way?
Pretty much I've kind of made the choices that I felt were the right ones in my career. There's probably been times where I was taking care of my family and maybe I did something I might not wanted to. But on a whole, in the 90s, I probably kind of stuck to what I believe.
I think for most of your career you probably have, actually.
Try it.
Congratulations on the new season of the show. It's so great to talk to you, Forrest. Thanks.
Great. Nice talking to you too.
Thank you. It's good to see you, man. It's been a while.
I know. Been 4 years.
4 years, and a few things have changed in your life since then. You turned 30, you got married, you had a sweet baby girl.
Yeah.
Put out this new album. Does it feel existentially different to you to have all these things in your life now than the last time I saw you?
Yeah, I think especially on promotional trips like this, because there's like, usually I would be out on promo and this would be my sole focus, and sometimes when I'm doing stuff in my head, I'm like weighing it up of being like, but I could have spent this time with my daughter, you know?
When you sit down to write music for this new album, for Equals, clearly if you listen to every song almost, there are touches of how your life has changed since your last album. So how much of your family, your new family, went into this record?
All of my albums from my debut to up to now have been a reflection of pretty much a mirror image of what my life is at that time. Like if you go back and listen to Plus, it's an 18-year-old boy who's just moved to London, had a breakup, and is trying to figure out if he wants to be in the music industry or whatever. And then the second album is me moving to the States and touring around and living in Los Angeles and blah, blah, blah. Third album is me traveling the world, settling down. And then this album is, pandemic, baby, marriage. Yeah, I don't really know what the next one's going to be.
Well, you just kind of stepped off after Divide. You stepped off this crazy ride that you were on. You were on tour for like 2.5 years or something like that. The highest grossing tour in the history of music, all of those things. And then you came back and you said, maybe that was it. Maybe that was it for me in music. Did you really think that way?
I've always, music's my hobby, and I started playing music because I loved it, not because I thought I would ever make a job out of it. Music isn't a thing where if you're in high school, people go, hey, this is like a viable job that you can go into. Right. You know, it's actually, you're kind of frowned upon. When I dropped out of school, all of my friends were like, okay, yeah, good luck with that. And then it does work, and then suddenly your hobby becomes your job. And I wasn't necessarily wanting to step away from music, but I was definitely wanting to step away from it being a professional hobby and, the kind of scrutiny that comes with it. Like, I enjoy writing songs, but I don't enjoy putting them out and then having them savaged.
So there was a chance, sure, you'd pick up your guitar, you'd always make music, but there's a chance you wouldn't put out another record at that point? Was that the way you were thinking?
Like, it was like giving up actually caring that much about, I would put out a record and not feel like I had to do a 4-month promotional run for it. I just kind of put it out and move on and not look at any of it. That was where I thought I would get to, but I just don't think I'm there yet.
Was any of that exhaustion from that ride you had been on with Divide? You were out there so long, it did so well. Were you just tired in some way?
The Shape of You was bigger than people thought it was going to be. The tour was bigger than people thought it was going to be. And then suddenly you come to the end of this thing and you have the biggest streaming song in the world, the most attended tour in the world, the highest grossing tour in the world. The album's sold 25 million copies. And then everyone's kind of looking at you going, hey, yeah, we're going to do it again, but better. And I didn't want that pressure. And what I quite like about putting out the No. 6 Collaborations project was because it wasn't really a solo album. It kind of cleansed the palette a little bit because it obviously was never going to do as well as Divide because it wasn't a solo record and it wasn't kind of pushed out in the same way. There wasn't a big promo tour, do a music tour around it, and that sort of relinquished the pressure a little bit. It was just sort of like, and here's something, and now let me just go off and make an album without any of this noise.
And then the pandemic intervened, so you're sort of forced to stay home and be with your family a little bit there. So at what point did you say, okay, now I am ready to take the next step and put out Equals?
It's January of this year. Wow, yeah, January of this year. Yeah, that was the time I was like, okay, I'm ready to go in studio again, and that's when Bad Habits was written, Be Right Now, Joke and the Queen, Stop the Rain. Yeah, that was where like the bulk of it actually got finished.
And did Sherry encourage you to get back out there? Did she say you need to be making
massively,
music?
Yeah, massively, because Cherry saw the toll it was taking on my happiness. You know, I'd get very sad about everything to do, because it is my hobby. Like, I love writing, and I just wasn't writing or performing. So she was very, very, what's the word? Encouraging about that. And she's very, very encouraging about these promo trips as well. Like, she wants me to work as hard as I possibly can.
You're about to, in just a few minutes, go over and play the Jingle Ball.
Yeah.
Are you ready to get back out and do another one of these big tours for Equals?
100%, yeah. I feel quite lost not being on stage, because that's so much of my purpose. And I have been on stage since I was like 11 years old, just constantly, just any stage that there is, I would hop up and play. So I really, really like the gigs are back on, and you know we're finding a way to do shows, whether it's by masks or tests on to get in and blah blah blah. So I'm glad that the shows are coming back. I'm excited to get back on tour, and I can't see the tour stopping. I'm gonna be going for a while. I'm gonna be going for a while. Yeah.
Does it change your calculus at all to have a baby at home, or the baby comes with you on tour? Maybe.
It definitely comes with me on tour, but the luxury of playing these large venues is no one goes midweek, so they have to be weekends. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday every week. So I have the week at home, and then I'll take, like, I mean, we're going to spend time in each city. We're going to try and do it on a train or talking to VW about an electric camper van. I want to travel to every show as electric as possible.
And you've got to film that. It sounds like a reality series.
Yeah.
The Sheerans hit the road.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that I don't think I'd work well on a reality series.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
The Today Show's newest fan.
Little Al Roker.
What am I doing here? This is your moment.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
So it's no small thing to put out an album like this, obviously, to write the songs, conceive of it. So what did you want to say with Equals that you hadn't said with those previous albums? Obviously, as you say, this is a snapshot of where you are in your life. But where do you start with that first blank page?
Honestly, there's no like divine intervention there. It's just basically you start writing songs, and then at some point you stop writing songs, and then you find a record in there. I've never really done a sort of concept album. I mean, looking at the album, it's about, the concept is turning 30, getting married, having a kid, losing a friend. That is the concept. But I didn't walk into that being like, and here it is. It just naturally happens. And for the next record, that's the approach I'll take as well. You just write songs and hope that they're good.
And Bad Habits was obviously huge.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a different sound. Was that something you wanted to do with your first single?
You know, I don't want to just release the same album again and again and again, and it's always nice to find different things that you can put out that can surprise people. And I'd never done a solo dance track. I loved the fact that I sung really quietly on it, and it was sort of turned up really loud, and it's very, very soft, and it doesn't really sound like me. And people would have to Shazam it to find. I like that. I like that element of it, rather than me coming out with a ballad and being like, oh, Ed's brought out another song and it's a ballad.
Right.
Because there are ballads on the record, but you can get to them after you've done the interesting ones.
But it's sort of disorienting, probably, to your fans to say, oh, is this an entirely new sound from Ed?
Yeah, but this is what happened on Shape of You. I put out Shape of You, and although that ended up being like a big hit, like none of my fans liked that the week it came out. None of them. They were all like, oh, at least we have Castle on the Hill to listen to. Like, this is... But now I play Bad Habits at shows, and it is the best reaction. So sometimes I think you go with your gut with songs. Like if I made songs for my fan base, I'd be brutally disappointed if they didn't like them. You have to be able to stand by your work, whatever. Like if Bad Habits completely bombed and everyone was like, we hated that, at least I could be like, well, I liked it, and I was just wrong this time.
Right.
But whatever, we move on to the next one.
Right. Well, your fans hung in with you on that one, and it obviously did well.
I think radio. I think it was. I think that radio hammering at home sort of brought people back round to it. I think.
Right. It's one of those you hear it a few times and you start to
Precisely.
get it.
Yeah. It's definitely like a third listen kind of song.
You mentioned ballads, so wedged in between Shivers and Bad Habits is First Times,
Yeah.
which is a beautiful song.
Thank you.
What went into that?
That was the first song I completed for the album. I wrote it in Nashville, and you know, I've achieved a lot in my career, and none of which was my intention at the beginning of my career. It's not like I set a list of like, I have to play Wembley Stadium, I have to have a platinum album, I have to do this. I just wanted to make music and make a living doing it. So all of these achievements came, and you find yourself then chasing the achievements. You know, when Wembley Stadium becomes possible, you then go, okay, how can I get there? I have to do this, to do this, to do this. But then I would get to Wembley, play it, and then be like, okay, what's the next thing? And never really truly be happy with the result. And what I found playing Wembley one day, coming backstage, feeling not anything, it was just a gig. Even though it was an amazing gig, it was just a gig. Being backstage and having a beer with my now wife, and then feeling so much and being like, oh my God, such a small moment can actually mean way more than such a massive moment. And then I looked back at all our, it's called First Times, all our first times, and wrote about them, things that were so insignificant at the time, like our first date was in Brooklyn at a pizza place, and at the time it was just, we were going for pizza, and now we're married with a kid and that was our first date. So that first time is so insignificant at the time, but now so important. The first time we got drunk together, the first time we listened to a song and cried together, the first fight we had, you know, like all of these things were so just in the moment, whatever, move past them, but in a timeline of a relationship are really important.
When you write a song like that and play it for the first time for your wife, what's her reaction?
Yeah, I think she really liked that one. I wasn't living with her at this point. I was living in Nashville, so I think I might have sent it to her, or maybe I played it to her when I got home. It was the one where whenever we'd have, because I've had it for quite a while, whenever we'd have people around for dinner and then we'd get drunk, it was the one where everyone would always ask to hear that one. They were like, oh, get the guitar and play that song.
And are you happy to oblige?
Always, yeah.
You take
Always.
requests?
I'm a performer. There's so many times I'm at like weddings and someone would just be like with a microphone and you just go, okay, cool. As a performer, you buzz off it. You really do. I mean, it depends in the situation. I wouldn't have done it at my own wedding, but yeah, if you're a performer, you love being on stage.
I can't imagine how many requests you get at a wedding. Ed Sheeran's here, get him to do the song.
Sometimes I feel like I get invited for that. You know, I arrive and suddenly they go, oh my God, are they no thinking out loud as well? Come on.
Do you still have moments, speaking of being on stage at Wembley in front of 80,000 fans, where you say, it wasn't that long ago, actually, I was busking on the streets of London, and now I'm selling out stadiums around the world. Do you still pinch yourself from time to time?
Is it weird if I say no?
No.
No, because I did so many of those small gigs, and then so many of the medium gigs, and then have done so many of these. I mean, obviously, there's moments where I go, oh, I'm really happy that I'm here, but I can track my whole timeline. I didn't just turn up here. I can track the whole timeline, and this first part sucked, and I'm really glad I did it because it sucks, because it's made me appreciate all of this. But I can see how it got here, because it's just built and built and built and built, and there's kind of been no shortcuts.
That's the thing about overnight success. It's always overnight to the people who see it from the outside,
Precisely.
but not to the person who lived it, right?
Well, I actually think with my career, there was so much made about the prior stuff that actually I think people did sort of see it. Because you know, you get someone like Jamie Foxx talking about having me play the Foxhole in 2010, and then you have someone else talk about this story of seeing me here and here, and all of that sort of adds up.
You've won Grammys before.
Yeah.
You're nominated again. You still get that feeling, that excitement of being nominated?
I think every artist would be lying if they didn't. I have like an odd thing with the Grammys, because my biggest year, which was Shape of You and Divide, it was sort of shut out of the main categories, and I sort of felt like, oh, am I now shut out? Like, is this the thing? And I haven't had a Song of the Year nomination since Thinking Out. No, Love Yourself actually was nominated. So it kind of felt as if you're sort of let back into the club. So yeah, it was a nice feeling. It's a nice feeling. I don't know. It's such a. I hate putting so much importance on it because I've been so heartbroken by it. I've had 13 nominations before I won one, and every time I would turn up and every time I would lose. And it's better to put your happiness on the songs that you like, and you go, okay, I like the song, and I put it out, and whatever happens, happens. What I said before, like if a song wasn't successful, I could still stand by it.
It's interesting to hear you say you felt like you were locked out of the Grammys, because I was reading where you said in some ways you feel like an outsider in pop music, which I was surprised to read, because to me you are the successful personification of what pop music is and can be. Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I don't really know, because I like, people like my stuff. So like,
right.
Obviously, like I'm in the pop sphere. I don't know. Divide felt like quite a weird time, because I feel like it took a lot of people by surprise, and my fan base are the best and wonderful. The tour's sold next year, so I'm going to go on and do that. And I found my little niche. I found a niche. I found a niche. And by the way, I wasn't completely shut out of the Grammys. I did get a pop vocal album and pop vocal performance on
Sure.
Shape of You. But I'm saying main categories.
Right.
I haven't had Song of the Year since Love Yourself. So it was a very pleasant surprise.
And a song that you took a chance on with Bad Habits, that nice to see acknowledged that way.
And man, do you know what? The competition is, like, I looked at that and I was like, I'm not winning that. That's like, you've got Driver's License, Montero, Peaches.
It's tough.
Like, yeah, it's like, and those songs are like massive. So I'm just like, I'm happy to be involved in the category. Hopefully going to perform, and that's going to be quite fun, and yeah.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Our week-long journey across America from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
As we talk about things that have changed in your life, you also lost a dear friend of yours, Michael. And there's another beautiful song on the album called Visiting Hours, which is moving not just because of your own experience with him, but anyone who listens to that is going to connect in some way with someone that they've lost. Who was Michael in your life, and what did he mean to you, and what does he still mean to you today?
Michael was just the best person, He was my music promoter in Australia, but that doesn't sum him up enough. Like we started doing shows together, and then I started staying with him all the time when I was in Australia, living with him and his family, and then they made friends with H.E.R, and then we went traveling there and stayed with them, road tripped with them, and then when they'd come over to England with their family, they'd stay with us, and the night before my wedding was a dinner with me, H.E.R, Michael and Sue, and that song was a way of processing it, and releasing it felt odd. I had to really speak to his family and make sure that they were okay with me putting it out, and they were across all the artwork for it and the mix and everything, and I've got friends of his that he was involved in their careers to sing on the track and stuff, and I think what's nice about the song is I don't feel like it's about my situation with Michael as much anymore because it belongs to so many other people.
Yeah.
And I met a guy the other day whose mum had passed away, and he has a fractured relationship with his dad. And he said he sent that song with nothing else, just sent that song over message to his dad, and his dad knew exactly what he meant. And they shared this moment of just being like, "I understand, yes, I understand," with a song. So I feel music like that is important. Music can be a language for anything, even in like happy times. Like Cherry loves country music, so she'll send me a country song and be like, "Hey, thinking of you." Yeah.
Is that the best part of your job, that you sit in a room alone and write a song that's maybe personal to you, and then it goes out into the world and it comes back to you in all these incredible ways of someone saying that I had this experience in my life and this fixed something for us? Or
I think I think it is an incredible part, but it's not my favorite part. My favorite part is actually creating it. The feeling you get from creating. I write so many songs that never get released that are just fun in the moment to write, but it's definitely a positive thing. What I liked about songwriting is you can have a really, really negative, like you can have a spiral and be as down and dark as can be and write a song from that, and then through that comes light. I think that's what's amazing about songwriting is it is a form of therapy, but it's a form of therapy that brings so much joy to people and yourself.
it's therapy for other people too. I was listening to the song in the car on the way in visiting hours, and immediately you think of someone that you wish you could have that last visit with and go speak to and bring them back.
Because I think with visiting hours, it's not necessarily about bringing them back, because I know that death is a part of life, but it's about clearing the air before.
Right.
Because we're all going to die, and when we do pass away, we will spend time with the people that we've lost. But it's about clearing the air before then and being like, cool, well, I'll see you in however many years, rather than what I didn't like about the situation is it's so final and there's so many things that aren't left to say. What was lovely about it was it was my 30th a week before he passed away, and my wife got video messages from everyone that I love, and he sent this like 7-minute message about all his favorite memories with me and all the best times we had. And so I had this video, so at least like I have that, but there's no, I don't know. I wish there was just 5 minutes to be like, you know.
Yeah, to have those last things said. And he left you with a legacy of a lot of wine in your wine cellar, I understand.
My God. Even more, because the winery sent more.
Oh, did they?
Sent more, yeah. So his drink was Penfold 707, which I thought, because he drank it like it was $5 wine. He would drink it out of a paper coffee cup. So I assumed it was like $5, $10. So when he came to stay at my house, I just ordered a bunch. And then I got the bill, and they're like $400 bottles each. And so I had like all of these bottles in the cellar that me and him actually got through most of them. And then the night he passed away, there was 7 left, and me, my mum, my dad, my security guard, and my wife just sat and finished them, which was actually really, really nice. But then more came. I've actually started collecting vintage ones. Whenever vintage ones pop up in England, I buy them, because whenever I have a. Really randomly, he made me a statue of himself.
Oh.
So we finished tour in Australia, and he said, "What do you want as a gift?" And I was like, "Life-size bronze statue of you." And he was like, "Cool." So he had this thing made. What was funny is I had him one made of me that's 10 foot and a ton.
Oh.
And I shipped it to him, and it didn't make it in time. I mean, he saw pictures of it, but it didn't make it in time, and it's just turned up at his house, and his wife's like, what do I do with this 10 foot 1 ton statue? It was weird getting it done as well, because I got it done by a sculptor in my hometown, but he was quite hush-hush about it, and he'd have loads of people that would work in the local area working on it. But they'd be like, why is Ed getting a 10-foot statue of himself made? This is a bit weird, yeah.
He's really changed, Ed.
I know. It was pretty, it's pretty ostentatious.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., a side of our nation's capital you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this?
The answers come when you need them most. Ooh, let it go. The Today Show's newest fan.
Little Al Roker.
What am I doing here? This is your moment. Your moment.
people really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the Eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Panther delivery.
All right, it just me too.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
So this is your home away from home when you come to New York.
Yeah, houndstooth.
Should we have a pour?
Yeah.
All right.
What would you like? I don't think the Guinness is on right now. But
dealer's choice.
Okay.
Whatever you like.
There we go.
There we are. So what's the connection to the Houndstooth?
I toured with Snow Patrol back in 2012, and when we played New York, they took me here, and they own a piece of this bar. And so I had, when I played Madison Square Garden, my after party was here. I think about a few other times here. I think when I played Brooklyn. Yeah, when I played Brooklyn, I played the Barclays Center.
Right.
And then Jay-Z and Beyonce had come to watch the show, and then they came here after, and we had a little like trad Irish jam with Foy Vance was on guitar. I think there were some other musicians there, and we just had a jam playing folk songs.
And Jay-Z and Beyonce were at that session.
Yeah, and I gave her a Jaeger bomb.
You gave her a Jaeger bomb?
Yeah, she'd never had a Jaeger bomb. I don't think she'll probably have had a Jaeger bomb since either.
Anybody who knows you, Ed, anybody who's worked with you for a long time, says you just haven't changed really from 10 years ago when you were opening for Snow Patrol.
I think I have though, and I think that's natural.
Well, you've grown for sure as
Yeah.
a person, but I'm just saying in terms of your generosity and
Right.
your humility and
Thank
things
you.
like that. How do you keep your head about you when you're standing in front of 80,000 screaming fans who are singing all these lyrics back to you that you wrote?
I think, like, I obviously have an ego on stage because you have to walk out in front of 80,000 people and know that you can entertain them, and you have to have an ego to do that. You have to walk on stage and be like, I've got this. Because if you don't, the gig's not going to go too good, but you have to switch it off when you step off stage. That's the key. And that's not, sometimes the balance not everyone gets, where you step off stage and you're still the guy. And I switch on, I go off on stage and entertain, and when I come off, I just go back to, I feel like there's two separate people. There's my full name, my stage name, as you were, and then there's just me, singular name, you know? I don't want to talk about myself in the third person, but there's two different stuff. And man, I know from you as well, because you are a presenter, like, you have to have two different things.
But it's harder for you because if you walk out the door of this bar right now, the world can't turn off the switch. They see Ed Sheeran and they descend on you.
But that's the adjustment that I've had almost coming up to 11 years in this with that amount of attention, and you just find ways to have it fit in your life. Like, I don't go anywhere unplanned, and if I do, it will be at random times in the day. So I would never, ever, ever go to Central London to a bar on a Friday night, ever, ever. But I might go to Central London to a bar on a Tuesday afternoon, you know. Kind of have the same sort of thing.
Now you're gonna have people walking around London on Tuesday afternoons looking for you. You've given up your secret.
But it's the thing, I'll always try and go somewhere like really, I love going in places and they'll be like, why are you here? Like, I love that.
Last question before I let you go. So you've had this 5-album plan. We're 4 albums in. Is it too obvious for me to expect that the 5th album will be subtract or minus? Do we know what that'll be yet?
So that will be, yeah, I don't know if there's another record before that. I think that will be part, so there's, in the 5-album plan, that is certainly going to be the 5th one.
Right.
But I've been making a hell of a lot of music recently, like a hell of a lot of stuff. So I think I'm going to be releasing more frequently now. I think that's the new norm. And you look at someone like Elton John, he was releasing 3 albums a year in the 70s. The Beatles did all their albums in 7 years. So I think the way that Drake is doing it now, and Taylor's doing it now, Ariana's doing it now, Bieber's doing it now, that's the new norm of just constant music.
And you're doing that right now. I mean, you're collaborating with some pretty exciting people. And you mentioned Elton John. Merry Christmas. You guys did a Christmas song.
Just hit #1 in England.
You guys are buddies. That must have been so much fun.
Yeah, I think with Elton, like, he asked me to do it last Christmas, and it wasn't like an instant yes. I know you'd think it probably would be, because I love Elton John and his music and him as a person. But it wasn't actually until Michael passed away that it turned into an absolute definite yes, because it just, that hit home that tomorrow isn't promised. And I was like, why would I, because I said to Elton, let's do it in 2023. And I was like, why on earth would I wait to do a song with Elton? Like, he's also a close friend of mine.
You've got some perspective on all of it.
Absolutely.
Ed, it's so great to talk to you
Thank you
always.
so
Thank
much.
you for
Thank
the time.
you.
I know
Thank
this is a busy week. We appreciate it. Michael, thanks for doing this. Good to see you, man.
All right, you as well. Thanks for having me.
We could spend most of this interview talking about New Jersey high school football, I think, but maybe we'll save that for a different time and focus on the movie.
Save that for another time. We can save that for another time, man.
So let's talk about Without Remorse. I told you I just watched it today, and man, it comes out and grabs you from the word go and doesn't let go for the next couple of hours. What does it feel like to be on the eve of this movie coming out that you've poured so much into?
I'm excited. You know, honestly, we finished shooting this movie right before the pandemic hit, so to go through post and edit, and really, put this movie together, and not really sure where exactly, when it was going to come out. So now that things are loosening back up and, getting ready to, drop it on, on Amazon Prime, I'm really, really, really excited about this one, man.
So let's give people a little bit of the backstory without giving too much away about who John Kelly is. This is based off the Tom Clancy book, which right away people lean in and they want to see it. But this is sort of the origin story of a character they may not know as well.
Yeah, John Kelly. So this is like, arguably, his second probably most famous character that he's created in his novels, and I've always been a fan of the Tom Clancy universe, growing up playing Rainbow Six video games and really envisioning myself throughout these missions. So when I had an opportunity to really like give John Kelly a fresh take and modernize the story, that kind of is more reflective of the world that I live in today, I just jumped at the opportunity. He kind of he goes through a personal tragedy. He's a Navy SEAL. He's a really loyal guy. He believes in everything that he does. And when he gets wronged, he wants some answers. And this movie kind of takes place of John looking for those answers, no matter where they are.
The video game part of this is crazy to me because you literally are living out the fantasy of every kid. You grow up playing a video game, and now you get to go live it out.
Exactly, and that's one of the things. I love my job, man, and I love being able to, do my own stunts. As a kid in the living room when you're taking the couch cushions and you're jumping off of them and pretending, playing make believe of whatever it is. These are the type of movies that I watched growing up, and so I finally being able to get into a place where I could do my own stunts and I could train for. Underwater sequences and, burning cars and, tactical training and explosions and all that good stuff. It's, it's a dream come true.
You've called this the ideal movie for you, that when you saw this, you were like, I need to do this. Why do you say that exactly?
Because I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I looking up to, movie stars and action heroes like, Tom Cruise and Michael Jai White, Wesley Snipes, Jackie Chan, these guys, they always put the work into it. They study, they train, so they could, be put in a position to actually do the stunts themselves. And I always wanted to do that. I always wanted a vehicle or a movie that would allow me to actually do my own stuff. So, for this one, I had a great stunt team. We were very safe, put a lot of time into working out and training and getting prepared, so they felt comfortable enough putting me in those positions.
When you say you're doing your own stunts, and you do in this movie, when I watch you walk up to a burning car, casually open the door and get in, or plunge into a river, let's say, and hold your breath underwater for a while, that's you? That's Michael B. Jordan?
Yeah, that's me, man. That's obviously, I have like my stunt double Clay, goes through things, make sure everything's safe, works out all the kinks, make sure, everything is awesome and safe as can be. But no, man, like, doing military, diving, and going to dive tanks and, spending hours and hours and hours under there, becoming comfortable. The burning car is like, it's not too much you could really do to train for that. I think that's the one I thought about the least. I was like, all right, cool. I got to do what? Okay, cool. Let's do it. Don't think about it. You put some, flame retardant gel on you to make sure, you can stay as cool as possible for as long as possible. But you still might walk away with a few less eyebrows and eyelashes. 'Cause, it gets pretty hot getting in and out of the car.
Is there anybody in your life or on set saying, hey, you're one of the biggest movie stars in the world. We don't need you walking into a burning car right now?
I mean, all the producers, I think everybody was saying that, had my mom on speed dial, so I think it was one of those things where I definitely had to persuade them at certain moments to let me do the things that they were like, you don't have to. I'm like, no, I want to. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. So, yeah, it was fun.
You've said before that your mom gets tired of watching you die in movies over the course of your career, so she didn't want to see it in this one.
Yeah, this one gave her a lot of anxiety, but it wasn't as nerve-wracking, I'm sure, as some of the other characters that I played that didn't make it out, So as you get older and, you start to, mature and have other roles that you want to see them, make it to the end of the credits, So it was good.
Speaking of the end of the credits, there's a moment after the credits that leads me to believe this may be the beginning of something for you. Is that fair to say in this series?
Yeah, that's fair to say. I mean, I think we want to, definitely stick around after the credits. But yeah, I think we're, we're alluding to the fact that we think we created a world that was, interesting and cool and fun, and we want to see where, John Clark goes from here, and I don't think he's done yet, So yeah, he has a lot more to do, and I'm really interested to see where he goes.
Is it cool for you, Michael, to have reached the point in your career where you can live out some of these fantasies, to have grown up watching Matt Damon be Jason Bourne or Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible or all the stars you mentioned, and now there you are standing as the guy that some kid watching movies growing up is going to say, I want to be Michael B. Jordan in those movies?
No, that's cool, man. That's yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say that's something that, I'm hopeful of, and I want to continue to do movies like this, continue to inspire. I think representation is extremely important, so to be able to, do a wide, range of movies in different genres, and this is like my first one in this space, so to be able to to do this type of movie is exciting for me, and it hopefully inspires a lot of kids too.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Our week-long journey across America. From Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last movie.
Was talking smack part of this?
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, people may not realize that you're a producer of the movie Outlier Society, your production company, which has become this sort of force in Hollywood. Talk a little, if you can, Michael, about why you established that, what you wanted to accomplish with that, and how it's grown now to back these major projects like Remorse.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, starting my own production company kind of sparked from my time on Friday Night Lights and Parenthood, you know, being around, you know, Peter Berg, you know, Sarah Aubrey, you know, and Jason Tatum, and kind of, you know, Pete was like, you know, one day you're gonna get tired of like waiting for the phone to call. You know, you gotta start owning things and creating your own IP and ownership. And I was like, you know, and at that young age, I just started, you know, thinking about creating things, you know, creating opportunities for others. You know, I've been extremely blessed to have a fruitful career thus far, and I want to, you know, you got to pay that forward, you know. So to be able to like have a production company who, you know, can shine a light on stories that maybe normally wouldn't get told, you know, and also, you know, normalize, you know, films and filmmakers and building around talent that maybe wouldn't have gotten a shot or opportunity. You know, I want to be the tip of the spear in that type of way and create the
writers in the deals where you have to have a certain level of inclusivity in terms of who works on the movie, which is an amazing piece of leverage that a handful of stars, I would think, could bring to a project.
Yeah, the inclusion writer, you know, was inspired by Frances McDormand, you know, a few years ago during her famous, you know, Oscar speech. And I was, you know, in the audience and I heard it, and I was like, oh man, okay. There's something, you know, in writing that we can actually, you know, put into play. I was like, okay, cool. So, and that was something that, you know, we you know, my team started to build upon, and we made that, you know, part of our, you know, our company policy. And that's something that, you know, just kind of, you know, tries to, you know, raise the accountability, you know, of partners with Outlier Society. And it's been very successful. It's been adopted on every project thus far since we put that in place, and we'll continue to do so moving forward. So it's yeah, it's definitely something I'm proud of, and you know, we're taking steps in the right direction. A long way to go, a lot of work to do, but I think if we continue to lead by example, and you know, one foot in front of the other, you know, when it's all said and done, we'll look up and be like, okay, you know, we did something.
Good for you for using your position for good that way. It's funny to hear you talk about the people you looked up to growing up, and I'm thinking back to your youth, your childhood in Newark, New Jersey, and how you got from where you were in Newark to modeling and acting. What was the leap for you? How did that young kid at 11 years old hop into modeling, and eventually that was sort of the road to show business?
It was my mom, you know. My mom really got me into it. She, you know, randomly, you know, at a doctor's appointment, the receptionist had two little boys who were, you know, were in the industry, you know, that were models at the time, and was like, you know, you should bring your sons with you too, you know, with me, and you know, crashed this audition. I crashed this audition and ended up booking it. Got in trouble because I didn't have any representation or whatever the case is. And then, and honestly, you know, the rest was history. You know, had a backstage newspaper down at Penn Station, randomly looked up a manager that took out an ad, you know, for open calls, went in, auditioned. She signed me that day, and we were going out on, you know, go-sees and auditions and stuff at, you know, 10, 11, 12. And then it just one small success to another, one stepping stone to another one. I just kind of kept going. Sometimes you just got to like walk your path, you know, you don't really know where it's going to end up. And then you start to learn, and you get to another level, and you assess and you learn and you build and your confidence, and you continue to grow, and you just figure it out. And it's just kind of always been like following my gut, my intuition. But I credit my mom for sure. Of getting me started and pushing me where I am.
Was that even on your radar though, Michael, as a kid? I know you love sports, you're a good athlete. Was that something that you thought of, like, oh, maybe someday I'll try acting, or was it just that out of the blue?
Out of the blue. No, it was no thought at all, honestly. I was enjoying, you know, sports and just hanging out with my friends and, you know, just living. You know, you're a kid at that point. You know, I mean, I guess some kids know exactly what they want to do at a young age, but I always loved, you know, animation and movies and television shows. You know, I was always entertained by that. So it was just, I guess, it's a natural evolution.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts. The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Most people point to your performance on The Wire as sort of the breakthrough, playing Wallace. How big a deal was that in your life, in your career? Did that give you the taste of, okay, I think I can do this for a living?
Yeah, that was when I really fell in love with acting. That's when I was around, a lot of veteran actors that, Idris Elba, Dominic West, J.D. Williams, Andre Royo, like those guys really sat me down and had conversations with me on set, and it was like, hey, you can, this could be a career for you, if you continue to, if you're serious about it and you really keep working at it. And that was when I first started to really look at it differently than just, oh, I'm getting out of school and I could, I just looked at it more as a business, that type of way. And then from then, falling in love with acting, just was my thing.
And then a crazy connection on All My Children, where you actually replaced Chadwick Boseman, who had become one of your great friends. What was that experience like on All My Children?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the work ethic kicked in. We would do so many episodes a week, and we would crank them out. It was a lot. You just always had to be prepared. So I think that's when I really got my acting school. I think that was when I really kind of started to get my reps in, I guess, as an actor. And then, in hindsight, I was, with Chadwick of it all, when we first kind of, first met, that's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what came for you guys later with one of the biggest movies in the history of Hollywood and Black Panther, to build that relationship coming off of All My Children, it's got to be crazy. What did he mean to you as a friend?
No, I mean, he's a special person, and it's it's a tragic loss, for all of us, for me, our community, we're still dealing with it. I think we're still processing. I think it comes in waves, but his legacy that he left behind, the impact that he's made on so many people around the world, his family, he lives forever. He has an incredible body of work to be able to that we can reminisce and and get a chance to see pieces of him. But he's still with us. You know what I mean? He's still around, so he motivates and inspires me, so it's cool.
Were you guys, I interviewed Chadwick right in the middle of Black Panther mania. I think you guys had just come back from South Korea or something, and he just plopped down across and was like, just on this whirlwind as the movie was catching fire. Could you guys believe in that moment, not just how big it was at the box office, but what a cultural force it had become around the world?
I mean, I think we were, at that point, we were constantly taking it in from city to city, from country to country, you know, really like, wow, okay, this is the reaction that we're getting from people. You know, the kids, you know, it's really all about the children and the kids, man, to see the looks on their faces, you know, of admiration and just, you know, just happiness and, oh, wow, like just to know that type of impact we're making was really special. You know, a time in my life I'll never forget. So it was a lot of fun.
For what it's worth, my kids still say your line when you took the mask from the museum, you said, nah, I'm just feeling it. I just want this mask. They still drop that around the house.
Oh, man, that's cool. See, stuff like that is cool, man. That's what it's all about.
They just drop it in. Am I right in reading your story, Michael, that before Friday Night Lights, when you'd gone out to LA, it was a bit of a struggle for you, even with the success of The Wire and the other things you'd done, that you were wondering whether or not maybe this was the right thing, and you even considered going back home to Jersey?
Yeah, you know, nothing's guaranteed, right? So even with the success of, you know, The Wire and, you know, All My Children, all that good stuff, you know, there's a lot of talented actors out there. You know, there's a lot of that don't, you know, for whatever reason, kind of make it over that hump, you know? And that show, The Wire, kind of, in real time, it wasn't as popular as it was after the show was over. So, you know, doors started opening up. The right people were watching the shows that I was doing, you know, so slowly things started to catch on. But at first, when I got out here, you know, it's, you know, life of an actor. You know, you're trying to put a string of jobs together where you can, like, you know, survive and stay out here long enough until you can actually figure out what your career is going to be or what projects you can actually, you know, live off of, you know? So I think, you know, in the beginning, you know, I just knew I had a threshold, there was a moment, right? But it's so crazy, like, you know, they say, like, right when you get ready to quit, you know, that's the moment. If you just keep going a little bit further, you would have made it, you know? So it's a little bit of that, you know, you have that doubt for whatever reason, you just continue to push through, and, you know, and here I am. So it's, you know, obviously I was doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, not everybody who does well on a TV show keeps pushing, though. You know, sometimes that's the moment in time and that's the thing they did, but you kept going with Fruitvale and with Creed and all these films. At what point did you feel like you were a movie actor, really? Because you'd had success in television. When did you feel like, okay, now this is my thing, I'm in movies?
You know, Fruitvale for me was the first time that I, you know, that answered a lot of questions as far as like carrying a film, you know, in a movie. But, you know, I still, I'm a real chill guy, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes I gotta remind myself, you know what I'm saying, of, you know, the blessings and accomplishments that I've had thus far but yeah, I don't believe my own hype. I don't drink the Kool-Aid, you know what I'm saying? I just do the work, man, and try to tell honest stories, and I'm happy that, you know, I'm able to make an impact on people and that people enjoy watching my work, you know, and I continue to kind of have that attitude and point of view on it, you know.
And part of that progression now is you're going to direct Creed 3, which is amazing. Your directorial debut. I know you're being directed as we speak by Denzel Washington. Is he giving you any pointers on how to do this?
Yeah, everybody is, man. I'll be a fool not to listen to, you know, like the greats, you know, and Denzel has so many gems and wisdoms to give. So yeah, man, I'm looking forward to telling the story and finally stepping behind the camera. I feel like I've been in my head secretly, you know, observing from that type of perspective for a long time, and, you know, waiting for the right thing or the right opportunity, you know, the right story to be able to tell. And I can't think of a better one than Adonis and Creed. So I'm really excited about this.
Is that going to be a tough thing to do, where you've got to see 360 degrees of the film, and then all of a sudden you got to grease up and get in the ring?
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. I mean, it's going to be challenging. You know what I mean? It's that's just what it is. But I look forward to it. You know, it's something that I'm as ready as I'm ever gonna be. I don't think you're never fully ready for it, but I'm a jump in the deep end type of guy. So, here we go.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Ooh, the answers come when you need them most. Ooh, let it go.
The Today Show's newest fan.
Little Al Roker.
What am I doing here? This is your moment.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
It's funny to hear you say you are a chill guy and you don't get swept up in all the things that have come your way. So how do you react when something like People's Sexiest Man Alive comes to you?
I just smile, man. Hey, look, just smile and enjoy it. Trust me, I got enough people around me, my friends and family, who give me enough that, what I mean? They keep me pretty grounded and humble. But it's all fun. It's a big target. Imagine all the group chats of all your closest friends, and everything that you do is because the sexiest man alive. It's like, it's annoying after a while. But
I imagine on one hand it's an honor, on the other hand you go, oh, I'm going to hear from everybody.
Exactly. I mean, my mom and my aunties, and all my all the women in my family, it's gold. Everybody else, it's a target.
It does seem to me, though, over the last few years, you've become more comfortable with the celebrity thing. Is that fair to say? You've been more open with your private life, and you're in love right now, and you've been very open about that. Is it easier for you to kind of let that wall down a little bit?
I think just understanding the industry and all the things that come along with it. It's not all glitter and gold, and it's it's a transition. But still very private, still, keep a lot of, stuff to myself, but there's certain areas of my life that, I chose to put out there. More of a way to be like, all right, it's there. Now we go and move on, right? And just continue to we can move on. Like, it doesn't have to be the private eye trying to dig and find out what's every little thing. So, but yeah, I'm happy, man, and it's and I probably always will, keep that part of my life, to myself. But it's nobody's hiding anything.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because a lot of people notice that with Lori, you've kind of gone on Instagram, and it sounds like it's a bit of a strategy to demystify it.
No, not a strategy, man. It's just more or less like, this is what it is, and all right, let's keep it moving. Like that's really it, man.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time. The film Without Remorse is incredible. We didn't get around to the rivalry with Behringer in Newark, but we'll hit that next time.
We'll get that on the next one.
All right. Michael, thanks for the time. Congrats.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right.
All right, see ya.
Welcome to Today All Day.
All day?
Today, all day.
All day.
This is a long way of asking who's your favorite character you've ever played. The unicorn. The unicorn. You gotta have the unicorn.
What is she right there? That's why you're saying all these nice things?
Yeah, she gave me the look. Sorry to disturb your day. Everyone's mad at you, Willie.
Better make this fast. I don't want the rap of Luna.
When I see you, I always think, I wonder what his quote would be.
Give us 6 minutes and we'll ask as many questions as we can.
Welcome to Cold Cuts.
Cold cut, cold cut.
My buddy Cal cooking with me.
Dads don't babysit. It's called parenting.
What was the first book you remember loving?
Heart Smart Today, with simple exercises to strengthen your heart.
Make the most of your beach days.
It's all about the tracksuit now. How good do they look?
I now pronounce you husband and wife. Kiss the bride.
This morning, a story of people helping people.
You've received tons of letters from people who have been inspired.
Let's do the weather out. Okay. All you gotta do is say, it's cold, it's warm, it's raining, it's snowing. That's it.
One of our most favorite franchises ever, Ambush Makeovers.
Okay.
Look at it. It doesn't look so good.
No, it doesn't look good.
Will you judge us in a cook-off?
I will, and you
Okay.
guys will definitely win something.
Today, all day.
All day?
All day.
Welcome to Today, All Day.
Sandra, thanks so much for doing this. It's great to see you.
Hi, Willie. Great to be with you.
I'm very anxious to talk about The Chair. I told you I just got to see the first 2 episodes. Before we do that, though, I want to wish you a very happy milestone birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you.
You had an amazing post where you stopped and sort of took stock of your life and career and thanked just about everybody you could think of and recalled all these great shows that have made your career what it is.
Yes, I'm not a big poster, but I woke up early that morning and my mom had already texted me from her, and she's like, basically, they tell us at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, okay. I woke up and I basically spoke with my parents. And milestone birthdays are wonderful times to take stock of things. And I was really thinking about, my friendships and my family and actually my work. And I just really wanted to thank everybody, It's a great immediate way to send out a message. It was great to do, yeah.
Is it overwhelming in some ways to stop at this point and say, oh, because you are moving so fast in your life and your career, to stop and say, oh, wow, look at all the things I've done in these years?
Actually doing stuff like this, of speaking to people who will ask me questions like this, those are the moments that I actually have to stop and go, oh, what have I been doing? What have I been trying to make? Because people will put things into perspectives that I have not thought of. And it's a really good checkup.
Well, you've got something great to celebrate with The Chair, the new series on Netflix.
Oh, there she is. Our first lady chair woman.
Explain for people who are thinking about watching it, sort of the plot, and also what about this great character drew you in?
The Chair is a dramedy, and it's kind of like a workplace comedy that's set in academia. So I play the role of Ji-yoon Kim, Professor Kim, who's just been the newly minted chair in the English department at Pembroke University, it's a fictitious university. And it's centered around a transgressive act that one of the fellow professors, Bill Dobson, played by Jay Duplass, does in class. And it's then navigating as the chair how to manage the fallout from a very ill-informed mistake, and how to keep the department, the English department, and in like the humanities relevant. But it also touches on so many things without being pointed at it. It's like what it is to be a woman and a person of color who enters into a leadership role, who's trying to change a very antiquated and patriarchal white system. You know what I mean? How she relates to her students and to her coworkers, how she relates to her elderly father, how she relates to her adoptive daughter. So it was a great opportunity to play such a dynamic and full-fleshed role. And I give all the credit to Amanda Peet, who created this world.
As you say, she steps into this place that has been run forever by old white guys. And in many cases, these are cartoonish old white guys kind of fumbling around, hanging on to their tenure. Could you dig into some personal experience as a woman of color who stepped into these prominent roles and roles of leadership and sort of understand what she was going through?
Sure. And I'll try and frame also that hopefully no one is a caricature in this piece. So even though you have, older white professors, male professors, one, the brilliant Bob Balaban, who plays Professor Elliot Rance, hopefully you're seeing his perspective on the effect of being the older generation and perhaps not have paid enough close attention to what the students want and how they need to learn. So I'll just start with that. And then the next part of your question, which is like, do I know what it's like? Yeah, I do. And I think that has got to have informed how I approach, Ji-yoon. I can't exactly specifically point to what, but one of the things that I feel like I have learned in my career that is a little bit ahead of Professor Kim is that change is slow when you are an individual facing an institution. And for me not to lose heart, because for anyone who knows who's tried to enact change, it's never the way that you think it's going to happen.
Right. And
the challenges are there for you to only get more specific and deeper into your commitment to change. And you just see Professor Kim just trying to balance all these things at once. And so you have a real good balance of comedy and pathos.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Todd Cast. Free wherever you get your podcasts.
Ooh, the answers come when you need them most. Ooh, let it go.
The Today Show's newest fan.
This is the moment.
Little Al Roker.
What am I doing here?
This is your moment. Your moment.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late breaking news.
All right, it
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Dr. Kim's name, which as an Asian woman, Asian American woman, you say that was really important, that her name was authentically Korean. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. It's like I can trace, I feel like, how Hollywood has progressed or widened. When I was on Grey's Anatomy for 10 years as Christina Yang, it was the Obama years. And specifically, the show never addressed people's ethnicity, nor did it really kind of address people's home lives. It just was the style of the show. So I never got to really necessarily explore what other parts of Christina was. And then with the show Killing Eve, I was able to bring a certain aspect of Eve's cultural heritage in the third season. But that's what the show's not really about. The show is really about the exploration of and the discovery of a woman's own psyche. But in the chair, when I first opened that first page of the pilot and I saw that Dr. Kim's name is Ji-yoon Kim, I just noted it in terms of the growth of my own career, that now I can play a character who specifically has a Korean name, and all the characters are going to call her that name correctly. And it was significant to me. I think there's been a lot of accommodation or denial or just not existence of the fact that people have they're in their names, their ethnicity is in their names. So it was great to see, and it was really important to me.
It feels like this fits into something you've been thinking about in your recent roles, which is to give authentic Asian experiences in the parts you take and in your performances, different, as you say, from something like Grey's Anatomy, which just sort of fit into the plot. You can sort of tell more of the story, and I feel like we see that in The Chair when she goes home and her father lives with her, and we see symbols of religion on the wall, which you've talked about in your own childhood. So what does it mean to you personally to be able to have that power in Hollywood to say, this is how the role is going to be, this is how I'm going to play that?
Well, it's definitely not as, let's say, cut and dry in that way, because for me, it's more like finding the right collaborators, because I'm not a writer at this point in my life, you know what I mean? But I'm not. I never want to limit myself. But it's about trying to find the world and the voices that I am interested in inhabiting and collaborating with. So, Amanda set the whole world. This was always going to be a part of it. Dr. Kim was always going to be taking care of an elderly parent, and she was always going to be taking care of an adoptive daughter. So no matter what, you get to open up a lot of story dynamic with that. And that was also one of the things that really, really interest me.
And is there a lot more of that now, Sandra, is just by virtue of all the different outlets that we have for those shows, added with a heightened consciousness and awareness that we need more of it?
You know what? I think so. I'm almost afraid to say, you know what I mean? And anyone who's a person of color knows what I'm doing when I'm saying, I don't even want to say that it might be true, but it might be true. Because there is more openness to it, because there is more interest in it, what I hope develops alongside of it is a certain type of patience and a certain type of support that comes in the form of development. Voices have to be developed. Do you know, if you suddenly want a storyline based on XYZ because you seem to think that the public wants it, you need to develop the voices to be able to take on those leadership roles to make that happen. Because ultimately what it depends on is that the storytelling is interesting and authentic and true. You know what I mean? Because you can have whoever you want on camera. It doesn't matter. But if it's not interesting, if it is not truthful, I don't think people will watch it.
I think that's probably right. And as you talk about bringing your own experience to roles like this, I love reading the story of your own upbringing outside Ottawa, where you really had to convince your parents that performance and acting was the thing for you. You were proven to be very right. But what were those early years like when you said, Mom and Dad, I know you maybe don't get this, but this is what I want to do?
I'm one of those extremely lucky people who have a good relationship with their parents. And what I've learned from that experience, and obviously growing and maturing as a person, is that adversity is extremely important in the development of a person's character. And the time, my parents are immigrants from South Korea, you know what I mean? And in a very, very, very typical Korean-American immigrant kind of upbringing, just very middle of the road, typical. Education and having a good job and security is very important. Anyone who's a child of an immigrant knows this. So my parents, it was very, very foreign, the entertainment world or the artistic world. It was very, very, very foreign to them. But what I am so blessed with is that the way that they were an obstacle to me, it only makes you tougher in a good way. I've spoken about this before. It's like, if you have the two most important people telling you that you shouldn't do it or that you can't do it, and you still do it anyway. You do it anyway. You just build an internal confidence, and you can only build that by going through it. So when you are pounding the pavement, when people are saying no, when you have self-doubt, you already have a certain layer of confidence because you've already surpassed, the doubt of the two most important people to you. I was very lucky in my career so far. In the early days, I had success quite early, and I was able to show them very full pieces. Where the entire film was about my character. I did this film early on by Mina Shum called Double Happiness. And it was about this character named Jade Lee who wants to be an actress, is in a very typical Chinese Canadian home. And it's a very simple coming of age story where she just eventually leaves home to pursue her dreams. When my parents saw that, my mom said to me, "Is this what you basically wanted to tell us?"
Mm.
And I just felt so seen by her. Like she got it. I mean, my parents really eased off the gas pedal because I was fortunate enough to be able to show them my work. And they could understand that that there's meaning in that work. And I think it's a little tricky and hard for immigrant parents, let's just say, to understand that if their child is an artist, just to not be afraid, even if they fail, or even if they're hungry and just eating pizza for 3 days. If you see your child that wants to be an artist in some sort of way, just to give them a little space to try it out.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right, it just did.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The moment when you win the Golden Globe for Killing Eve, you get up there and they showed on the broadcast, I think before you even got to the microphone, your parents. And your dad stands up and breaks into applause and you're doing okay. And then you see them, you could see it sort of wash over you. What was that moment like to see your parents who were skeptical at the outset stand in the back and watch you receive this huge award and to watch their daughter be so successful at what she chose to do?
You know, I have been shameless with my parents. I have brought them to so many awards shows. They're pros. They're really, really pros. But it's profoundly, profoundly satisfying that when you reach a certain type of milestone, and I would say that for me, it was hosting the show, that your parents who support you so deeply are actually there in the audience. Yeah, it's profoundly satisfying to be able to come to a certain point in your career when in the moment that you're celebrated, that your parents get to witness it. I mean, you should ask them what they felt. I honestly, it's such a blur. You know, it's such a blur. But it was also really important to me to be able to publicly thank them. You know, and you know, you don't. I mean, I'm honestly just doing it in the moment because my parents are there, but subsequently, it was reflected back to me that I think that it meant a lot to a lot of children of immigrants and a lot of Asian American kids and just people to be able to express gratitude and love to their parents publicly.
I don't think I have to ask them. I saw their faces that night. I think they were pretty proud. So you talked about that early success in Canada, and then you make the leap over to American television, and you mentioned Arliss. I think most people point to Sideways as the breakout moment for you. Did it feel that way in real time when everyone said, oh, who's she? I like her. Let's put her in more stuff.
You know, I think it was actually a timing thing because Sideways and Grey's Anatomy happened at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So those are just mysterious times of like, the stars are aligned. And I think that did happen. And, working on Sideways was one of the highlights of my career. I think it still holds up. It's
Definitely.
been like a while now, but I think it still holds up. So that kind of like 1-2 punch of like Sideways and then Grey's Anatomy, it was a real shot out of a cannon. But I also am so happy that, it happened in my early 30s. So I already had a career behind me and a fairly good amount of grounding to be able to receive what that meant to suddenly come into people's consciousness.
And it kind of felt like it seems that with that Sideways success, you said to yourself, I don't have to do the girlfriendy, sidekicky thing. I can be front and center, be a central character.
When you make those certain like leaps in your career, you change the point of view of what you're going to accept.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was not in the terms of I don't want to be XYZ.
Right.
It was very much like I only want to play dynamic characters. I only want to play things that inspire me. And that's always a really challenging time to be able to move your career into a place of inspiration as opposed to of necessity. So I was very lucky to be able to decide and start practicing that. And that's definitely when Grey's Anatomy came along.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Only a dozen hours after the Eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses. Private Panther delivers.
All right, it just did too.
Answers come when you need them most. Ooh, let it go.
The Today Show's newest fan.
A little Al Roker.
What am I doing here? This is your moment.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast. Free wherever you get your podcasts.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast. Free wherever you get your podcasts.
So Grey's Anatomy comes along. You talk about being shot out of a cannon. There's no bigger cannon to be shot out of in terms of a show that was right in the cultural zeitgeist that people were talking about the morning after all the time. What was it like in your life to be thrust onto that show, to have this big role on the biggest show on TV, to have more and more people interested in your life, to know who you are, to say hello to you on the street? How did it change your life?
Well, that's a big question. Big question. And I don't think that, I'm guessing that, to be perfectly honest, it was traumatic. It's traumatic. And the reason why I'm saying that is, I don't know whether it's just I come from a different generation or my temperament as an artist is that that the best work or the work that or the circumstances you need to do your work is with a lot of privacy. And that's just to find the authentic self. And so when one loses one's anonymity, you have to build skills to still try and be real. So I know this is probably not an answer that people are particularly interested in, but it is a truthful one. But having been in it, I've grown to adapt, and it really forces you to grow internally, for at least for me, internally, to be able to, I mean, I went from not being able to go out or not being able to go, like hiding in restaurants or never looking out, to then being able to receive and manage projection, manage attention, manage expectation while not losing the sense of self. And that takes a little while to figure out.
How do you do it though? How do you do it when all the eyeballs in the restaurant are on you? How do you say, okay, this is my life. It's not normal, but it's my life. Here's how I'm going to manage it. How did you make those adjustments? Because I've heard the same from other actors who've been shot out of a cannon on a big show or a big movie, and all of a sudden their life like that, the weekend the movie comes out, is totally different.
Well, have a good therapist. I'm not joking.
Important. Yeah.
No, I'm not joking. It's very, very important because there's a lot that one would need to talk about that you should not talk about with your partner or friends or family. You don't burden them with that. It's a very specific road. And so one, have a good therapist. Hopefully you have a good support system, a support network, you know. I am very lucky that I do have a very great support system. And you just have to work at finding your way to stay grounded. And a lot of times that's by saying no.
You've done well with it, certainly. And from the question that always comes up when someone leaves a show like that is, okay, what do you do from there? What next? And here comes Killing Eve, and you have this other great success where, as I said, you win another Golden Globe Award. What was it about that part that so attracted you, and what makes that show so popular that people are so obsessed with it?
I don't know. I can tell you definitely what intrigued me was Phoebe Waller-Bridge's tone.
Yeah.
Because I had not seen it before. And I knew it was fresh. Like I really knew it was fresh right off the page. And I knew I could follow it. I like the circumstance where, you know, it's this kind of very middle of the road, middle of her life woman. And every woman who then develops an extremely dangerous and obsessive relationship with an assassin. Like those are crazy circumstances. But what I could also see in the piece, which I was very interested in exploring, that it's about a woman's self-discovery. And that was ultimately what was so intriguing. And hopefully that element, as well as a type of very exciting push and pull relationship between Eve and Villanelle is exciting to people. But mostly I hope it is that you see these two women trying to figure out themselves by somehow needing to be in relationship with each other. And that was really interesting. That was really, really interesting to me. Like how do you figure out how to be in relationship with a character that wants to kill you?
Right. It's a big question. It's a big question. Well, part of the fun of the show is that you have a different woman writing every season. So can you give us a little look ahead to season 4 of what your fans might expect?
Well, I honestly am just in the middle. I'm here in London, just in the middle of shooting the season 4, the last season of Killing Eve. And I can tell you nothing.
I knew it.
Except
I thought I might break you, Sandra.
Except that, you know, we're really, really working hard to try and like really honor that relationship. and to find out how their story not ends, but somehow finishes at this moment. You know, that's what we're really working hard on, trying to find that way to service all those characters beautifully.
Very diplomatic answer. It felt like you were giving something and you really weren't. You were such a pro. Such a pro. Sandra, I really appreciate your time. Congratulations on the chair. It's so fun to talk to you. I know you're busy working, so thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Trevor, thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you, man.
We should stipulate a few things for people watching and listening. It's about 102 with the heat index.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
So if we're a little dewy,
yes,
that'll be the reason why.
But we're outside, which is good.
We're outside on a summer day.
Yes.
And we should also say, you demanded, it was in a note that you wrote, hand wrote.
Yes.
I have to be in front of a billboard of myself.
Well, what I like is to have a billboard to remind me that I did have some semblance of a professional job before the pandemic. So I like to have that as a reminder for myself.
Yeah, there you are in a suit looking very official. So let's talk about that, what it's been like. I mean, it's when we all started this 2 marches ago, you probably thought, you know, I'll be in my apartment for a couple of weeks, and now here we are, 15 months later.
Yeah.
What is it like for you now as compared to the beginning? Have you settled into this kind of show?
You know, I don't think anybody has settled into anything during this period. I think what has been interesting about this period of time is that unlike any other time in human history, no matter who you were affected by the pandemic in some way, shape, or form. Some of us managed it better than others because of the resources we had, and some of us didn't. You know, some of us took a mental toll. It took a mental toll on us that maybe other people didn't experience. And so I think what's been really interesting is the best way to answer your question is to say I've gone through phases.
Yeah.
You know, there was the initial period of the pandemic where I thought, you know, I'm going to be fine. It's 21 days, because that's what they said, 21-day plan.
Yep.
21 days. And
yep.
I thought I can do 21 days. And then I thought, you know what, it might be 2 months. Yeah. And then we hit that period, especially when we got into the winter months where it was like, man, this is just unrelenting.
Yeah.
It's nonstop. It just keeps on going. And yeah, the best way I can put it is I've been surviving. And I think like many people out there, I've been coping, and then there's moments where I feel like I cannot cope.
Right.
And then there are moments where I go like, I'm fine, I can do this. But it has definitely not been a normal situation, nor do I try to make it normal.
So how do you, as a performer, you're a stand-up comedian, your life is in front of an audience. You tell a joke, you get the response, right? You get the affirmation, the thing I thought of was great. How do you adjust that doing a late night comedy show where you're in a little nook in your apartment?
I adjust it because I have to. And that's what's been the one thing that has saved me mentally, is understanding that the situation is, therefore I have to be, you know? And so one of the quickest things I did with the pandemic was I accepted the reality of what I was living in. And I think that's where a lot of people struggled, is they didn't accept it. They went, when are we going back to the office?
Right.
When are our kids going back to school? And it's good to ask those questions, but not to live in a perpetual state of not accepting your reality. And so for myself, I literally just had to say, well, what if there were never audiences? And what if you never were in a studio? And what if you never had space? And what if you never act accordingly? Because what I realized very quickly was I was going to lose my mind if I kept waiting for something that was never going to end,
right,
or something that might never change. And so, yeah, I found as a performer I had to find a different gear, a different conversation that I would be having with an audience. Because like you and I now, this is similar to how I make the show. I think of one person, think of one set of eyes, one almost like collective idea of a human being who watches my show. And it's almost the imprint from all the people who came to the studio.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, that person is here now. I'm talking to them. What would I like to say to them?
Life is springing back to normal. There are a lot of shows that are thinking about coming back or have come back. How are you viewing the next few weeks or months and getting yourself back into that studio?
Well, that's the first thing I've had to do, is say, I'm not going back. How am I going forward? You know, and so like many people who have been lucky enough to emerge from the pandemic, I've had to ask myself, what are the lessons I've learned from this time, and how will that affect or augment my life moving forward? And that is no different to the office. I have to ask questions for all of us. How many days a week do we need to be here physically? What are we doing and why are we doing it? How are we doing it? How do I want to live my life, in accordance to the show, and the show in accordance to my life? How do I want to figure out those pieces? I think those are some of the things that I'm trying to figure out now. So for myself, what is the studio? What is the studio I go back to? What is the journey I move forward to? These are all the things I'm trying to play with. But what I don't want to do is try and go back to a life as if this thing didn't happen.
Right.
Because I say to everyone in my life, if you are going to live as if the pandemic didn't happen, man, you're almost living in denial, because this has been one of the greatest existential threats to humankind that we've seen in a very long time.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now, weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? We began our across America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
We've had a pandemic, we've had a presidential election, a new president, an insurrection. You had the murder of George Floyd just over a year ago. When you and I talked, I think it was about 3 years ago, we were in that studio, and you said something to me. You said, I think at the end of the day, the show has to be funny. However I deliver it differently than other late night shows, you got to laugh at the end.
Right.
So how do you navigate those heavy, heavy, heavy issues and those heavy moments in our society and still be funny about it in the way you've been for the last year and change?
I ask myself what the purpose of that funny is. And I think that's something that during the pandemic I've really crystallized in myself as a human being. I've come to realize that I don't use humor to belittle or to make fun of a situation. I use humor as a coping mechanism. I use humor to remind myself of where I wish to be as a person, and that is in a place where I'm smiling, in a place where not everything is the worst in the world. And that's what I think comedy does. When a child falls or a baby hurts themselves, what's the first thing you try and get them to do? It's to laugh again. You want them to smile. Not because you want them to forget the pain, but because you want them to remember how they were before that pain entered their lives. And so now when I make the show, what I realize is I can use humor as a pressure release valve, for the moments. And I can also use humor to almost deconstruct what is happening. Sometimes humor helps you because it's very honest.
Yes.
And so what I'm really trying to do now is say to an audience, tune into my show if you would like to be kept abreast of what's happening in the world, and if you don't want to feel like it's all doom and gloom, because I don't believe it is. And I don't believe we can ever live like it is, because if that's the case, then we've lost all hope. And if we've lost all hope, what's the point of living?
How do we get back to some place where we can have conversations, where it's not just about the tweet that was a burn, or that, that's what politicians do now.
Yes.
They just want to signal to their side that I'm fighting for you and here's a tweet. How do we get back somewhere, not perfect, but somewhere in the middle where we can talk?
So I think there are a few things that I've had to acknowledge for myself as a person. Is one, who am I talking to and why? You know, I think there are a lot of bad faith actors out there, a lot of people who don't want to have a conversation with you. They just want to, quote unquote, own you.
Yep.
I'm not trying to have a conversation with that person. But there are many people who I am trying to have a conversation with. And so when you ask me how I think we can get there, I don't know how the we can be collectively, but to go to the old adage, I'll just try and be the change. You know, I'll try and talk to as many people I don't agree with as possible. I'll try and engage them in a civil manner. You know, I try and stay away from like the straight up like bam bam. You know, don't get me wrong, I'm still gonna tell jokes. I'm still gonna have fun with that. And if you come at me, I'll come back at you with a joke. I'm still a comedian in that way.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like hard conversations, I would like to have those more and more with people. You know, I would like to have more moments where I engage someone in a space where we know we don't agree, but we both see each other as human beings.
Right.
I want to practice that more and more and more as a person. And so on a societal level, I don't think it is possible for us to ever get back to that until we look at all of the things that make it impossible. So social media fundamentally makes it impossible because it is designed to get as much engagement as possible. That's how they generate what they generate, you know?
Right.
And so maybe there's a way to clean that up. Maybe there's a way to say to social media companies, hey, we're incentivizing you to find some way to make people not just enemies with each other. Stop putting these posts up of Willie where Trevor says he wants to burn down his house. You know, he doesn't need to see that. How is it helping him?
Right.
And in media, I think we have a role to play, you know?
Sure.
Are we only broadcasting conflict, or are we trying to have civil conversations, you know? Because the thing that I always try and explain to people is this, you know, and this is like how I think of my show. I go, I don't pretend to not be biased. I have my opinions, and I share them with people. What I hope we can start to do more of in society is agree on a reality. Then we can fight about that reality.
Right.
You know, so think of it like a game of basketball. And everyone is fighting over the same ball and the same rim, but they all agree that those things are there. Then they can fight about how the game is played. That was a foul, that wasn't a foul.
Right.
You know, you've got this many points, I'm gonna beat you.
Yeah.
But you're agreeing on the reality of the game.
Right.
Right now in society, we're getting to a place where we don't even agree that there's a ball.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Panther deliberations.
All right, it just me too.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this?
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast. Free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
So I mentioned new administration. How has it been for you digging into the Biden administration? Obviously much different from the Trump administration, but do you approach the show differently with this man in the office?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, there is no lying that Donald J. Trump was, I think it was Jeff Zucker who called him this back in the day, a one-man publicity wrecking ball machine. That's what he says, it's just chaos.
Yeah.
You know, there's no denying that that's what Donald Trump brought. Now, while that, I think, had good elements because it brought people into politics that weren't necessarily interested before. The downside was it all became about him.
Right.
And I honestly believe that most issues in society are not about Donald Trump. They're not all his fault. They're not all because of him. He might be a symptom, but he's not the cause. And so because he was really good at garnering that attention, it then made society unable to have conversations around the real issues that were taking place. You know, and so now I'm trying to focus more on the issues than on the politics of the issues. Because that's the thing about America as well, that I've really come to realize, especially during the pandemic, is America makes everything political. Everything is left or right.
Yep.
Everything is red or blue. I didn't grow up like that. You know, I hear people all the time in America saying, well, as a Republican, well, as a Democrat. I've never said that phrase in my life because we've never done. In South Africa, no one says, well, as an ANC support, as a DA support. No one says that.
Yeah.
In fact, where I'm from, we would spend more time criticizing the people we voted for than the people we didn't vote for. Because you elected them to do something that you want,
right.
Ergo you would criticize them.
Right.
America's really interesting in that regard, and I think that discourse doesn't lead people to have real conversations. A mosque isn't political. And so how you use it and where you use it, these are things that people can discuss, but it shouldn't be political. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Trash shouldn't be political. Any conversation in life shouldn't be political. There's so many that shouldn't be political, and yet we are making it that. And so what I'm trying to do now, and Biden delivered on one thing that he promised on, and that was he's going to be the president that nobody wants to talk about.
Right.
That's been great. Because now we get to delve into issues that affect everybody. Because one thing that I think every American can agree upon is, regardless of who's in office, there are still people who are struggling to pay the rent. There are still people who are struggling. They haven't seen a wage increase in years. There are still people who don't know whether their children will be able to go to school. There are still people who don't know how they're going to put food on the table. There are still people who don't know if they can afford healthcare. That will always happen from administration to administration. So I think it goes beyond politics. And so now on the show, I look at the issues, and then we'll touch on the politics that may affect it. But I think we need to have more interesting conversations about what affects us as human beings.
You had a pretty good strategy during the Trump years, which you said in our previous interview too, is I refuse to be perpetually outraged. You just can't be outraged every minute of every day and have a healthy life or run a comedy show. So did that help you get through those 4 years of Donald Trump where you couldn't look at every tweet and set your hair on fire? Yeah.
Definitely. You know, I think a lot of people also like to get enraged. You know, it'll be like, oh, Trump tweeted this. It's like, yeah, but you don't have to look at all his tweets. Oh, Trump made this joke at a rally. Yeah, he made that joke to his people. You don't have to get angry about everything that the person is doing. I would always say to people, think about what's offending you and what's affecting you. They're two separate things. You know, I would even say that it even happened with comedians in and around that time. You know, people were getting angry at comedians and they were like, how can you say that? How can you say that? How can you say that? And I don't think people shouldn't be held accountable, don't get me wrong. But I also think people have to ask themselves sometimes in life, are you allowing yourself to become enraged by things that are not happening to you necessarily? You're gonna go out of your way to find a thing that somebody said, look at what this person said in Thailand on the train. Is that gonna make you angry now?
Right.
You know what I mean? You're living in Ohio and you're gonna get angry about what someone said in another country, on another continent to another person. Man, we cannot live like that. And so what I learned to do was ask myself, what is affecting us? And what is just offending us? The things that are affecting people, let's deal with those issues. Things that are offensive, you can have fun with them. That's comedy.
You're also going back and doing stand-up, I understand. You got a tour coming up.
Yes, I am.
What's the plan there? Is there one yet?
Yeah, there is. There is. I'm excited, man. This has been the longest period since I've started stand-up that I haven't done stand-up. You know, and so I actually was going to wait a little bit longer, and then I did a show with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and Michelle Wolf at the Stand in New York. It was a surprise show. Dave Chappelle said, come and watch a show, and then he tricked me, and the next thing I was on stage. He was like, why aren't you on stage? And I said, I don't actually know. I'm waiting. He said, man, it's time. Let's go. And what I realized even in that moment when I was on the stage, I didn't have anything prepared for that moment. I didn't have an idea. But you know what? It felt like home. And I could feel the audience was starting to learn how to be an audience again. We were all experiencing this thing together. And that's why for myself, comedy is something I can never let die. because how many times in life are we going to experience, or how many times have we taken for granted a space where hundreds or even thousands of people can come together for the purpose of laughing, Willie. Laughing, having a good time, enjoying themselves. Not there to fight, not there to argue about which team should win or shouldn't win, not there to cheer about politics, but just to laugh. Man, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. I've always loved it. But post-pandemic, I appreciate it more than ever before. And so I'm getting back on the road. I'm excited to be doing shows again. I'm getting ready. I've got my show and I'm preparing things. It'll be a little bit of what's happened, a little bit of nothing, which is great. I'll be telling jokes about, I don't know, 16th century England, you know? I'll be glad
Topical
to take,
stuff.
Yeah, I'll be glad to take a break from politics. That's what I miss about stand-up as well, you know? I used to do shows where like I would have like people who would be like, I'm Republican. People would even say, I don't like your politics, but I like your comedy. And I was like, well, come to my comedy then. Come to the show.
Good enough for me, right?
Hey man, we're human beings. At the end of the day, we're gonna have to live in the same world. So if we can't find spaces and places where we can interact with each other, then we're doomed.
Yeah, and you've also got the film coming up, Born a Crime, which I was looking back, that book, sitting on the New York Times bestseller list literally for years. You never could have imagined, could you, when you said, I'm just gonna sit down and tell my story, here it is, that it became this phenomenon?
No. I told a story and I shared an experience. I shared a story of a mother and her son, and I shared a story of a country coming out of one of the craziest periods in human history, which was apartheid, and trying to establish itself as a democracy. I honestly did not think in any way, shape or form this would become what it is today. You know, I didn't think people would be still reading the book years later. It would still be on the New York Times bestsellers list. You know, it would be the #1 Audible book of all time. I didn't think that. I didn't think kids would be learning it in school.
And now your mother must be pleased that Lupita's playing her.
What's interesting, so my mom doesn't care for celebrity at all. She doesn't keep up with it. She doesn't know anything about it at all. She was just happy when she saw the picture. My mom doesn't know who Lupita is. But she was just like, because my mom hears about things from people in the street, which is hilarious for me. So someone will come up to her in the street and be like, wow, you're gonna be in a movie. And my mom's like, what? Why, in a movie where? Where am I in a movie? And then she'll phone me and be like, you put me in a movie. And I'm like, no, you're not gonna be in the movie. I'm making a movie about our book and our life. And she's like, oh, okay. And so I'm like, someone's gonna be acting you. And she goes, who? And I go like, oh, Lupita Nyong'o. And she's like, who's that? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send you a picture and this is her. And I sent her and she's like, oh, okay, no, I'm very happy. I'm happy that it's an African woman because I'm an African woman. And I was like, did you think I was gonna ask Julia Roberts to play you? Like, what? Where does this come from? But my mom is just like, man, she's just simple and living her life.
That's awesome. That is incredible. But what about for you personally, to walk into the building with a billboard in New York City on the side, given where you've come from, everybody's read the story in your book, do you ever stop yourself and go, wow, I can't believe how this has turned out?
Here's the truth of it. The truth is, it's a gift and a curse. Everything in life, I think, has its gifts and its curses. On the one hand, obviously, coming from a life where sometimes in my family, we didn't know if we would have food on a day, to live the life I'm living today, I'm like, man, I can't believe this is insane. You know, I can order a mains and a starter if I want. That's one of the biggest things where I go, I've made it. I'm not even lying. I look at the menu and I go, I have both. And I really still go, man, I'm blessed. I'm really blessed. And then there are times when I see a billboard or I see a poster and I'm like, that's me. That's insane. That is me. I can't believe how far I've come, and I'm happy because I've brought my family with me and I've brought my friends and my community, and I've been able to help people because of that. That's a gift. The curse is the fact that you have a billboard. You know what I mean? Like, people take this for granted. If I'm in let's say I'm in like I'm in a line somewhere and something goes wrong, someone spills something on me, someone kicks me, whatever, I can't just be like, bah! You've just got to breathe, because if you're not careful, someone's going to take a video and be like, Trevor losing his cool. But we should all be allowed to lose our cool, Willie.
Yes.
But because if I'm not careful, then the thing, so it comes with its curses.
Yes.
You know, because I think you lose a little bit of the way you would live if you weren't like surveilled.
Of course.
You know? Like you get to the point now when you eat, you're like, is someone taking a picture of this moment? This is how I eat. Small bites, nothing too big. This is how I eat. Because you know the one time you're like, that's the picture. They go, you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, of course.
It's one of those things.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
We've got a Congress that doesn't seem very functional. What's this election year going to look like? Are we getting ahead of the science? Are we behind the science? How much did this booster confusion set us back? Can the January 6th committee come up with anything that would change Republican minds? If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late-breaking news.
All right,
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We were talking about George Floyd and how you handled that situation. You were out on hiatus when he was murdered,
right,
2 Mays ago. What were those couple of weeks or those days like for you as it sort of stewed in your mind and you figured out how to handle it?
When George Floyd was murdered and when we started to witness America in one of the most tumultuous periods we've ever seen, I was actually grateful for the fact that I wasn't on air, because I now didn't have to react to what was happening, but I could observe. I could listen to people. I could see what was happening. The biggest emotion I had was sadness. You know, I see a lot of people now who try and create a martyr out of George Floyd, and they go like, man, what George Floyd did and what. No, George Floyd did nothing. What was done to him? You know, he didn't choose to be a martyr, nor did he want to be, nor should he have been. And so when I was experiencing this, as many other people were, you're asking so many questions about life. Why is it so hard for us to have honest conversations about policing in America? You know, why is it hard for us to connect as human beings in and around a life that was lost? You know, why does it have to feel like acknowledging the lives of those that were lost means you have to diminish those of police officers? Why is all of this happening? Why are people failing to see the humanity in others? You know, and so in that period, that was the one thing that I kept on thinking was, do you understand what level a community has to get to the point where they're marching in the streets and protest? Do you understand what level people have to get to be there? And so for myself, I felt like I could not only observe, but then process, and then try to articulate what I could see was happening in the world, just by listening and observing the people that were going through it the most.
I've got to ask you about your collection of hoodies. Every night, go in there, there's some different color or rainbow, whatever it is. How many hoodies do you have?
Everyone asks me this and I'm afraid to count, because I think what happened is, so first, to understand the hoodies, you have to understand life. I'm at home. I don't know when I'm going back out into the world. Hoodies are what I wear at home.
Sure.
I love hoodies.
Yeah.
This is just my life, okay?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be making a show from home. It's like I'm not gonna wear a suit, I'm at home.
Right.
I don't wanna feel like I'm at home.
Right.
We're all in sweatpants on our Zooms, etc., etc. That's why I dressed the way that I did. Then, I was like, man, I'm running out of hoodies, because I thought it was gonna be 21 days.
Right.
So I had to buy a few more hoodies, and then I had to get a few more hoodies, and I had to get, the next thing I know, There's just hoodies. There's just hoodies everywhere, Willie. There's hoodies in every nook and cranny of my cupboard. There's just hoodies everywhere.
Just showing up.
Everywhere. But in many ways, the hoodie has become, you know, the uniform that I don for this period of time. It's become, you know,
Right.
it's become my little safety blanket. It's become my thing where I get into a mindset. I go, okay, it's time now. Go and do this thing. You put it on, and it's how I've created a sense of normalcy in a world that is completely abnormal right now. And so that's really all it is me going, okay, how do I get to, you know, just step into the zone? What's that moment where I go, okay, I'm doing this now? And that's what that's become. It's become my ritual. It's become my you know, non-spoken conversation with the audience. We're still in hoodie land right now as people. And I can't wait for the day when we're not.
Well, that's coming pretty soon, but your audience might be disappointed if you come out in a suit now. They want to see those hoodies.
Maybe, you never know. Maybe I'll do hoodies on Tuesdays and suits on Wednesdays. That's what I mean about I'm not going back, I'm only going forward.
There you go, Hoodie Tuesdays.
You never know.
Thanks, man. Thanks for doing this, Elizabeth. Good to see you.
So nice to be seen and be in New York. I have not been to New York in 2 years.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, since pre-pandemic.
What's it like to be back?
It feels great. The city is brimming with energy, and I walked around last night, and I'm just, loving it.
Well, we have a ton to talk about.
Okay.
I think we should start right here on the table.
Oh.
With H.E.R. Roos.
H.E.R. Roos, yes.
How did you get involved with this delicious treat?
H.E.R. Roos wine in a can. Good wine in a can, I should say.
Yeah.
So, female founder, I was really interested in putting my money where my mouth was. So I hired a diverse female money manager, and we were looking for companies to get involved with that sort of reflected my values. I think that's something we're all trying to do right now, is live a sort of purpose-driven life if we can. And apparently my purpose is wine in a can.
There definitely seems to be a thing in the last several years where well-known people are not just like backing financially or just putting their name on something, but getting super involved in the details of how the company runs and being a part of the marketing.
I think it comes back to that word authenticity, right?
Yeah.
I think that when you can feel when you're just kind of selling something,
right.
And when that feels really important to me, and I think everybody sniffs it out now.
No, you're right.
You know, you have to really care, I think, and that comes across when you're a little more involved, and when the marketing reflects me and who I am as a person, as well as the product.
People are so savvy. I think you're right. When a celebrity says, "I love this washing machine," you go, "No, you don't."
You do.
No, you don't love the washing
I will
machine.
say, normally I do love the washing machine that I'm selling.
This I can tell you love. You also have this new podcast, which has a lot of people talking. My Body, My Podcast.
Yes.
It is, I was just saying to you, there's probably some joke in you and I sitting here, me, a middle-aged man, talking about women's bodies. But I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son, and as I started to listen to it, I said, my God, these are the exact conversations we're either having or trying to have or dreading to have. So what prompted you to open this discussion?
You know, this exact thing prompted it. Truly, I'm a mom, and my kids are looking at puberty soon, and I felt unprepared. I really felt also, as a woman and as a feminist, somebody who was looking at Me Too and Time's Up over the last few years and coming to my own understanding about everything that's happened to me as a person, as a woman, in my industry especially. You know, how do I grapple with all of this? How do I talk to my kids openly about it? Because I want to raise healthy kids who have great intimate relationships and are not fearful or filled with shame about anything.
Yeah.
And we have a very old school way of dealing with sex and sexuality right now, and it causes a lot of harm. And I just felt like if I could investigate this information for myself and learn more in the hopes of providing it for my own family, maybe other people want to listen in. And you know, and I really feel like I made it so that you could listen to it with your daughter or your son, and so that parents could feel a little more prepared going forward. But also because I truly believe that sex education, when done well, has the power to transform people's individual lives, but also society as a whole. Because everything that we talk about when we talk about body image, sex, sexuality, health, healthy relationships. This is something that intersects our daily lives, and we hide it away in a corner like it's shame-filled and we're not allowed to talk about any of this stuff. One study said that human beings think about sex once per hour, your entire adult life. So from puberty till you're dying, you're always thinking about some aspect of something.
It's constant.
And it's not like I want to, I want to have sex. It could be anything, it could be like, something on my body hurts or whatever. And it's also important to remember, like, we have these pleasure centers that we have access to on the daily, on the regular. And like, what an amazing feature of our human body. And why not use it a little bit more? And if we're going to use it, I want to make sure that the storytelling around it, that we own it. Because as a woman, I can tell you that a lot of the storytelling about my body and how it's used and how I have had my sexual experiences, I don't own it. I don't own that storytelling. And that's upsetting as you get older and you realize how many experiences, especially young women, are having where they're not really having any fun. I think young women are taking it back. There's so much more information out there. This podcast is part of that information. But at the end of the day, we have deep-seated and very deep-rooted shame around these and stigma around these issues and talking about them openly. And the way we do it with young people too, even just how we separate boys and girls in health class. That's not really doing anybody any favors. What you're doing is you're creating a system in which boys are told about erections and nocturnal emissions and a lot of fun things. And girls are told you're gonna have your period, it's gonna be horrible, you're gonna bleed, don't get pregnant, be afraid, don't get an STD, don't get raped. It's like that. It's like the messaging is a mess. And then we put them back together and we go, what did you talk about? I don't know, apparently I'm not supposed to tell you what I talked about.
Right. Don't you think part of the process, though, is people like you kicking that door open?
Of course.
Who, whether my daughter loves you and Pitch Perfect, and go, oh, okay, she's saying it's okay to say these things out loud.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of the journey.
I hope so. I grew up, I had some Dr. Ruth, and then we had like Loveline, remember that? And the day of Dr. Drew. And I read Cosmo, and what I'm realizing now is kids are getting their information from algorithms, and they're online and they're looking up, I want a healthy recipe, and they're pretty soon directed to like eating disorder websites or being told that they're not good enough, or in every aspect of social media is amplifying the negativity that happens online.
You're right. I mean, like so much that's online, it's the job of the parent or whoever to intervene and correct that early, or else that becomes, cemented as the image. You talked about body image, which is, again, I keep going back to the father of a teenage girl. With Instagram and everything else, it's a tough world out there when you're told relentlessly with every scroll, this is what you should look like, your teeth should be this white, your abs should look like this. What do you say to both parents and young people growing up in a world where they, more than ever, in some ways, are shown what they're supposed to look like?
I have a real love-hate relationship with social media for myself, and I have a hate relationship with it for my children. So my kids are not on my Instagram. They have very limited screen time and any of that stuff. Very limited gaming, the whole thing. I just feel like that is my number one job as a parent, is to protect them from those things. I'm not their friend. I'm literally meant to guide them through life and figure out what's in their best interest and what isn't. And I think the evidence becomes clearer and clearer every day that social media especially, but the internet generally, is not in their best interest in any way. I mean, it's great for information. It's great for buying things. It's great for connecting with your grandma. So I love those aspects of it, and I think we should celebrate those aspects of it. But there's a lot that is no good for kids, and I really feel as a parent, for me, that part of my job is policing all of that. But it's really hard. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of on the same page in terms of the way we handle it with social media. In some ways, though, the genie is so far out of the bottle,
Yeah.
it's like you can't hide them from everything, and they just see it. I mean, maybe it's not on Instagram, but maybe it's on a commercial on the show, whatever
Yeah.
it is of who I'm supposed to be, it's very in their face.
Yeah. I think making sure that you're their trusted adult. So on the podcast, we talk a lot about trusted adults in their lives. And a trusted adult does not necessarily have to be you. Like I had a lot of, funky aunts, who my mom, I think, could farm out some of the information to, because it's a little less awkward when you get to talk to your aunt about it versus your mom or whatever. But having trusted adults in your kids' lives is really important. So if it is you, great. But if it's not you, make sure there's somebody in their life that they can talk to about these things.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app. Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
We began our Cross America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last one.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition. What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day. For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
It's a testament to your relationship with your mom that she's on the podcast.
Yeah.
That you have these open conversations. What did she think when you told her what this podcast was?
She was not that surprised. She was not that surprised. She's been my trusted adult for a very long time. I wouldn't say everything was like an open discussion with my mom, but I'm very grateful and lucky. I had a loving boyfriend in high school. I have a great relationship. Obviously, I'm almost 30 years into my relationship with my husband, who I've been married to for 18 years.
You met on the first day of college.
I met him on my first day. I was 18 years old when I met him, and we're still together. But that requires like a lot of curiosity to keep it interesting for 30 years, and open discussions about everything as well. And talking to my mom on the podcast really helped for me hone in on that theme of a trusted adult. And the idea that these are not conversations that happen once or twice, but that it's an ongoing conversation for your entire life, hopefully.
Yeah. You mentioned your mom.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about going back to your upbringing in Pittsfield, Mass. At what point your mother or your family realized that you might be a performer, that you might be an actor?
Very late.
Late? Really?
Yeah, no, I was not meant. My mother bought me a book. She bought me Diane Sawyer's autobiography or biography when I was in college because I thought I might be a broadcast journalist like Willie Geist. I thought I would, that seemed like the right path for me. I loved Diane Sawyer. It wasn't until of truly like my senior year of
Really?
university. I'd been doing plays since middle school.
Right.
My very first musical was Jesus Christ Superstar. I'd broken my leg. I was an athlete. I broke my leg. I couldn't play sports. I was in a walking cast. And I always sang in the choir. And the singing teacher said, we're going to do Jesus Christ Superstar. You can play Pontius Pilate. Not Mary Magdalene, by the way. You can play Pontius Pilate because you can wear long robes over your walking cast and sing the song. And I can still remember, I can still sing the song. And that was my first foray into real performing, was in middle school, because I had to. I needed something. I was a latchkey kid. I needed something to do after school. My parents, were like, you gotta be busy, stay busy.
Right.
And I suddenly didn't have sports. I didn't have practice. So I went to rehearsal instead, and that became my new family. And I carried that through college, but I never thought, I didn't understand this as a profession. I didn't know anybody who was an artist professionally. I knew, my cousin dabbled in it a little bit, but they were mostly all waiters, you know what I mean? And I had been a waitress at that point for 10 years, going on 10 years. And so I thought, how do you make this into a life? And I got into drama school. And I went to drama school, which I could not afford. And I took on more student loans. And I just thought, oh man. And then I kind of came out and I said, I'm going to give myself a little bit of time, but it never felt real to me until it suddenly was.
Right.
And so I just kept putting the work in. And
so then what was that moment where you said, oh, I can do this for a living, this can be a life? I'm out here, I am waiting on tables, I've had some brutal auditions, I've had producers say some awful things to me.
Yeah.
When did you decide, this is something I can do, or I want to do?
When I was leaving drama school, I came to New York. I had a showcase, as they say in the business, where you sort of put on a little show for agents and managers and different people. And a casting director was there from a soap opera here. And they invited me the next day to audition for this soap. I'd never done a professional audition. I didn't really know what that was. And I got the job. And they offered me a 2-year contract on a soap opera. And I called my mom from a payphone. I'm dating myself. I called my mom from a payphone. And I said, I don't think I'm going to do it. And it would have paid all my student loans. So this was very serious, like more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. And it wasn't even that much money, but it was like, holy God.
Yeah.
This solves all my financial woes, And my mom agreed. I was crying on the phone. I was like, I just don't think I want to do it. I don't know what else is out there. And that was the advice. It was like, well, if you can get this today, what can you get tomorrow?
Wow.
And that's how I've approached this whole life. What have I gotten today? Okay, great. Well, what else can I get tomorrow? And don't settle for what you got today. Figure out what else you can get. And it's led me down this incredible path where I feel like I've been able to keep a little bit of my dignity intact, although not all of it. You shed a lot as an actress in Hollywood. It falls off and you just pick it back up and try and stick it back on. So I've maintained most of my dignity. But also I've realized that it all adds up to something. I used to go to auditions and be like, man, if I don't get this audition, I can't pay my rent. And I put so much pressure on that 2 minutes in a room with people who you don't know and who don't care about you paying your rent and are just trying to solve their problem, which is they need somebody to come in and be great so they can cast them in this role. And at a certain point, I allowed myself to let go of that pressure and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna do the best I can, I'm gonna walk away, and if they call me, great. And if I never hear from them again, I'm gonna keep on keeping on because it's already in the past. And it really freed me to just keep going forward and not be precious about what I can't change because it already freaking happened.
Where did the confidence come from to say no to this big gig that was going to pay all your bills and it was on a show people knew and you were like, no?
Unconditional love, I guess, I mean, truly, I think that is where it comes from. It comes from going to college. Neither of my parents, my mom has now gotten her college degree, but when I was going to university, neither of my parents had graduated from college. They didn't have college degrees. So going to school as a first gen was already like their wildest dreams come true. And I knew that from my parents, and I knew that my parents would do everything to make my life better and give me my dreams. And they do it for my sisters and my brother as well. And they're super just loving and supportive. So I think just knowing that like my fallback is like some loving family that will help me, it's like really nice to have, and not everybody has that.
Yep.
So it's important to recognize that that is privilege that I grew up with, that I now give to my kids as well and to the rest of my family. But that chance that I had, I was not going to waste, because I knew it was special and that it meant something to more than just me.
I also feel like you became sort of undeniable. You were relentless of like, Wet Hot American Summer was good, Scrubs was great, 30 Rock, you were great,
Yeah.
Modern Family, and people finally were like, okay, she's great. Did that feel like a grind through that?
It does. There are moments when you realize that people trust you as an entertainer, and I think that's really important. Knowing like, okay, if I'm on, you can relax. Like, I'm gonna entertain you. I'll make you laugh. I'll sell the joke to you. You know, are you gonna watch me on Press Your Luck? Like, I love Press Your Luck. Like,
Great.
I'm gonna bring you along for a ride. And I think as an entertainer, that's an important thing for me, is making sure the audience trusts me and connects to me and feels like I'm not gonna disappoint you. I take that responsibility very seriously. And there have been moments where I was like, you know, it's gonna be fine. I didn't need a lot. My bar was low.
Right.
I really was like, I got like my class 3 driver license. I drove like a van in college, and so I got like the special license. And I'm not kidding you, Willie. I used to tell myself, well, I can always drive a bus. Like, truly. I'll be fine. I can drive a bus.
Just renew that license.
Just renew the license, pass the test again. You know, I really have come to life with what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of hustle to build that confidence, but I've never shied away from doing the dirty work, and whatever it takes.
Today is now a podcast available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Answers come when you need them most. Ooh, let it go.
The Today Show's newest fan.
Little Al Roker.
What am I doing here? This is your moment.
These days, the news never stops. The morning's headlines change by afternoon, and by the end of the day, it's all totally different. So let's get into it. What's happening right now, what it all means for you for an hour every day. I get it. I know that it can be hard to keep up. So let's get started together and go from there.
Hey, I'm Hallie Jackson, and we have a ton going on tonight. Here's the deal.
Hallie Jackson Now. Weekdays at 5 on NBC News Now.
People really don't know what's going to happen. Really, a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news. 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Panther deliberations.
All right, it just me too.
We began our Across-America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last one. Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community?
At some point, you make this conscious decision of, maybe I'm not getting the big roles that I think I should be getting.
I like it. You're not an A-list star.
Well,
this
no,
is true.
no, no.
I'm a worker. I'm a worker
I'm going
bee.
back now, and you take control of your destiny.
Yes,
you start
I
your
did.
own production company.
Yes.
With your now husband.
Yes.
And you say, okay, we're just going to make the stuff.
I got really great advice from some incredible women in the business who are a little ahead of me, maybe a little generation ahead of me, and who were really dissatisfied and bored. They were really bored. And I could already feel a sense of boredom creeping in. And I knew that if I didn't do something, it would fester. I would feel underused. I would feel like I wasn't bringing my full self to my work, and I wasn't accomplishing everything that I wanted to do. And so being able to be a little more in control of storytelling and directing and producing, creating interesting stories that center women's lives and women's autonomy, that became just a goal and a destiny for me that felt totally right, and again, authentic to who I am as a person, as a woman, as a feminist, as an activist. And here we are. Yeah, I just started doing it. A lot of people ask me, but how? There are a bunch of actresses who are doing it right now. Olivia Wilde comes to mind. Natalie Morales is coming up. But Jodie Foster did it before me. Penny Marshall did it before me. Those were my role models. But it's rare. Yeah. It's a rare thing to do, so it takes a lot of chutzpah. And I just thought, well, if I don't try, I'll regret not trying. And I know I'll be bored. Otherwise, you have to wait for the phone to ring.
Right.
And I don't want someone else to be in control of my time and what I do with it. I feel, for me, the definition of success is control over how I spend my time. Because now I have kids, and I want to make sure when I'm away from them that I'm doing things that really matter to me.
I have to underline the name of the company too, Brownstone,
Brownstone,
because it tells the story of the way you grew up, right?
It does, yeah. So I grew up on Brown Street in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and my best friend Soraya and I used to joke about our lives someday. And we used to think about having a 5-digit address because that was the fancy side of town. It was like 10300 Brownstone Drive. Nobody lived on Brown Street. Like,
right.
It's a bummer. By the way, I love the hometown roots. But it was aspirational for me, the idea of Brownstone Drive someday. And living in a brownstone in New York City was very aspirational for me. And I lived in one with my husband before we started the company. And so Brownstone for me it was always a meaningful idea in my life, growing up in my little town in Massachusetts.
And then with one of your first projects, you come out pretty hot with Pitch Perfect.
We are mainly known for the Pitch Perfect franchise, figuring out how to tell a story about a group of misfits, and that it was those women. I loved those women. I loved, Kate Cannon, who wrote the script, did an incredible job creating just a group of women that I think everybody could see themselves in. And at the end of the day, like a really basic boys versus girls storyline that stands the test of time. And people love singing and dancing.
Yeah, just a fun universe to be
love
into.
Singing and dancing.
Singing and dancing.
And I think bringing a lot of humor to that, bringing an irreverent sense of comedy to it, which is something that has been a through line of my career, my whole career in comedy. And it's really fun to put out a poster in the world that features all those women.
Yeah.
You don't see a lot of those posters. And I think it feels very natural, but go through all the Hollywood posters. It's not. It's very quietly revolutionary, in my opinion.
Talk about controlling your own destiny. Then you step into directing.
Yeah.
What do you love about directing? I assume you do love it. Or maybe you're like, no, never again.
I just did it again.
I know you did. I want to ask you about that too.
Oh, God.
It's especially a movie of the scope of a Pitch Perfect movie. That's a big directing project. What do you love about that?
I love the collaboration with the crew and the cast. I like being in charge. I'm not afraid of being in charge, and I like, leading that group, and I love offering opportunity to people. I mean, I really feel a great responsibility. I tell everybody at the end of any, the part of the process, like, I'm gonna keep working hard to like make this something that everyone's proud of. And that is my goal, just to make something that everybody's proud of. And to entertain people. I've been thinking, not a lot, but a little bit as I'm aging, about what my legacy is in the world. Not everybody gets the opportunity to leave a real legacy. And what I didn't want was for everyone to look at Wet Hot American Summer and 30 Rock and whatever and just be like, yeah, she was cute. She was good on those. She was a good actress or whatever, cute blonde, small boobs, nice actress. Like, I was like, is that my legacy? Is that it? How do I take a little more control over what is going on? And also, I'm just curious. I really love trying new things. And I love when people put me in a box, immediately blowing the box open, So I made this, funny musical, and I was like, what else can I do?
Thank you so much. Congratulations on all your success.
Thanks.
The wine is delicious. The podcast is great.
Thank you.
It's all happening. Nice to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for doing this, H.E.R. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
I want to tell you right out of the box, this is the highest elevation we've ever done one of these interviews. 101 stories.
I've never been this high up in my life. This is crazy.
It's kind of crazy, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's beautiful, though.
We felt like it was perfect for you given where you are right now, on top of the game with this year you've had between playing the Super Bowl and a Grammy and an Oscar. How does it feel to be in the middle of this moment right now?
I don't know how to describe it. It kind of feels like this view. It's like all you can do is just sit and enjoy it and be thankful for it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like taking every moment, trying to seize every moment. And I know this is just the beginning, which is really like scary, but amazing in a way. So I'm just taking it all in, and I know that this is a very special situation. I know that this doesn't happen all the time. So I'm just so grateful.
So we're just a couple of days away from your 24th birthday.
Yes.
It's kind of crazy, and I know you can't stop and let it wash over you completely because you're moving around doing so much, but have you processed at all what these few months have been like and how early in your career these things have started to happen for you?
I guess so. I have been thinking about it like, wow. And of course you have those doubts like, do I deserve this? Do I deserve to be here? And I have to remember, I've been doing music for pretty much my whole life. I've worked for so many years, and I have to give myself more credit. I have to say, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You've worked for it, and you should be proud of yourself. So I've just been working on being proud of myself. Because of course, when you create this art and you do these things, you're, the hardest on yourself. So I'm always hard on myself. But now I've really been taking the moment to pat myself on the back.
It feels like people in the music industry and real fans of music have known you for several years, but when you stood up there during the Super Bowl and did America the Beautiful with that guitar and you were by yourself and singing and playing, I think a huge audience of football fans or, a part of the country that maybe didn't even know who you were stopped and said, who is that? How special was that performance for you?
It was very special, and the timing, I think, couldn't have been more perfect because you see a young black Filipino woman up there on the stage, playing electric guitar, and I don't think you see that very often, especially on a stage like that. So I just felt so excited and nervous at the same time because it is, one of the biggest stages ever. But it was so much fun. My mom was there with me, and I know she was super proud. So, we'll be back for a halftime show one of these days.
You will. I bet you will. I always think about when I see somebody singing the national anthem or just being alone on a stage that big. Mm-hmm. Do the nerves come in different than other performances? Do you think, there are 100 million people watching this?
Oh yeah, sometimes, definitely. But it takes about 2 words or a line, and then I'm in it. I'm in the performance and I'm nowhere else.
You click into that zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, you corrected me when you were right. I almost caught myself when I said so early in your career started when you were a toddler, basically sitting at the piano, and you were on the Today Show when you were 10 years old.
Yeah.
2007, sitting in a piano in a little fur vest you had on.
Yes.
And your parents were in the studio, and Hoda was interviewing you, and then you played Alicia Keys.
Yeah.
And now tomorrow, you're getting ready to go stand on that city concert stage with a big crowd on a Friday afternoon. That's a kind of a crazy full circle moment.
It is. There's been tons of those full circle moments. And I think that's what really shows me that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. But you know, it is early in my career. It's fair to say that. You know, I'm only 23 years old, so I still got a whole lot of years of doing this thing, to be in it and do my thing. It's like crazy to think that I'm only 23 and so much has happened, but it is early.
And so Back of Your Mind, I was reading, is technically your debut album.
I mean,
what does that mean
say,
exactly? Because we've been listening to you for years.
I wouldn't call it debut album. I would
Okay.
call it my first official album,
Okay.
just because I've released EPs before.
Right.
You know, it's only been EPs and then combined into one project. But this is my first official, full body of work, like album.
And so what went into this? What was in the back of your mind? You were just saying, I've been listening to these songs on my phone for a couple of years now,
Yeah.
and now they're out in the world. What's in the back of your mind?
So much is in the back of my mind. I think this album is pieces of Volume 1 and what got me here in the first place, and it's elevated, and it's the growth. It's more musical. There's elements of live drums and live keys and band feels, but there's also pieces of like more trap drums and new R&B sounds, and I think all of that is in this project. It's not just one specific period of time. It's everything up until this point.
And you've said when you write a song, it's sort of another way of writing a diary almost, that you put your
Absolutely.
thoughts down. So what specifically has been on your mind for the last couple of years? What was coming out of your diary?
What was coming out of my diary? It's all in the music. I'm not going to tell you because I have everything revealed in the music.
Okay, I've been listening to it, so I know. But for people who are going to go out and listen to it, when you decide to put out something this personal in an album like this, what is the process? I mean, you said it's been a couple of years, but like you start with the blank page, and what do you want to say when you're putting out your album?
It's moment by moment. It's what do I feel today, or what did I feel yesterday, that I need to get out on this paper, in this song. And when I do that, you don't realize you're working towards a body of work. At least I don't. I don't realize that, this is actually a story because it's my life. It's just a collection of songs that represent different feelings and different moods. I'm super moody, so there's so many different moods, that go into this project. And it's like I went into the studio thinking I'm just gonna make great music. I'm gonna make a good song. It doesn't matter what's in it. I don't care if it's a flute or if it's a trap hi-hat. It doesn't matter. If it's a great song, it's a great song. And to me, some of the best songs sound great, when they're stripped down. So if they sound good like that, then they're gonna sound good any kind of way. And that's kind of what I start with. And with this project, I thought it's really time to make a full body of work. It's time to work towards, I had been touring from 2017 till 2019 pretty much. I just was touring, so I never had time to really buckle down and like just focus in the studio on a full body of work, and this was that.
One of the things I love about you is you can't put your music into a box. People want to say, what kind of music? I mean, it's R&B, yes, but it's a little bit of older blues. It's Jimi Hendrix on the guitar. So when you were growing up, I love your list of influences, because I don't think most people would expect it from a kid who grew up in the 2000s talking about names like B.B. King and Hendrix and
Yeah.
Prince, to go along with Mariah and Whitney and all the people who influenced you. So when you were growing up in your house, I mentioned you were a toddler playing the piano on your dad's lap.
Yep.
How did this music thing start for you?
It was just, it seemed like it was there. It was like, my dad's band was playing in the living room when my mom was pregnant. So I was probably, in the womb, like, I'm gonna do this, like probably. And when I was growing up, it was like, there was all kinds of music around me. I was blessed to grow up in an extended family home where it was my grandparents that grew up in the Philippines. They were in the house with us, so they were listening to Johnny Mathis and Barry Manilow and Celine Dion, and then my mom was listening to her favorite, R&B artists like, Jodeci and people like that, and then my dad was listening to funk and James Brown and Hendrix, as well as Eric Clapton, and as well as Ozzy Osbourne and AC/DC, because he was just such a guitar, guy. And then my uncle was playing, Aaliyah and Joe and, Usher and people like that. So I was exposed to so many different types of music, and I loved it all. I loved it all because I just heard all the details, of everything, and I took it all in and was like, maybe I can make this, and I didn't think I thought about that really, but I just did, I just did, and music was just something I loved. It wasn't about the genre or the style, it was just, this is music.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Nearly a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. There is some late breaking news.
All right, and
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Savannah and Hoda bring you what you must know. The biggest moments of the morning.
One Republic!
Exclusive interviews.
Why did it work for you?
You're right. I am more talented than the rest.
And important headlines.
Major medical news this morning.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule. Streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
It seems to me you've always been comfortable performing. Maybe that's not true, but just watching you in that interview when you're 10 years old, the poise you had even during the interview. So you got to sit and talk to these two strangers for a while before you play this song by someone you look up to, Alicia Keys, on national television. Where do you get your stage presence? Is that from your dad too?
I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. My dad, he would go on stage and it would be, two people in the audience and he's going crazy, no matter who's in the audience. Or it's 100 people at a club or a festival and he's going crazy. And, they were a cover band, so they would play songs like, James Brown, Get On Up, and then they would play Sweet Home Alabama. Like, it was like he just had so much fun. And I think maybe watching him have so much fun on stage encouraged me too. I don't know. Maybe.
Was there ever a chance you weren't going to be a musician? I know you flirted with the idea of being a dentist for a little while.
When I was a kid, it was going to be something like probably in the medical field. When you have an Asian mother, like the pressure of of the Asian family home, sometimes it's like success is like you got to become a doctor or like a nurse, you know. So I think that was definitely going to be in the plans, and then that didn't work out. So I just became a musician instead.
So in your heart, you knew you were going to be a musician.
I think so. I think I decided, it was a given. But when I graduated high school, I really decided I'm going to do this thing 100%. I'm going to be fully invested in this. And yeah.
Have there ever been, once you decided, have there been bumps along the way where you said, man, this is a tough business. I don't know how to break through. I don't know if this is going to work out. And obviously you've overcome all that if you had it. But have you been frustrated at certain points in your rise?
Absolutely. I've been blessed with an amazing team, MBK Entertainment, who believe in artist development. And they saw me when I was on the Today Show when I was 10 years old. And everybody saw something in me that I don't even think I saw in myself. But shortly after that, I got signed to RCA Records, to MBK RCA. And I was 14. And, of course, people around you are like, oh, you're going to be a huge star. Like, right away. They think that's how it works. And I think I knew that's not how it works, just because I had been exposed so young and watching other artists. But of course, throughout those years, I'm working on my craft and I'm being patient, but I'm watching so many other artists, become successful. They were managing Elle Varner and K. Michelle and Brandy and Alicia Keys and Justine Skye and all these different artists, and I watched them, and I was on the side of the stage at their shows. I was the ones I was the one backstage cheering them on, you know, like, oh, that's gonna be me one day. But of course you get frustrated, like, when is it gonna be my turn? And of course I was working on my craft, and people would say things like, oh, she's gonna get shelved, you know, she's never gonna make it, or she's never gonna put music out. And I think I just quieted all those voices, and I knew, you know, what's for me is for me, and it's gonna happen when it's supposed to. And finally, as soon as I graduated high school, the following year in 2016, we all took a chance and decided it's time to release Volume 1 and finally really, you know, be the artist that I'm meant to be. And the rest is history.
I feel like probably for a 14-year-old coming into the music industry, they might have wanted to push you in a certain direction, certain
Absolutely.
people, because it's got to be hard for them to even conceive of a 14-year-old who wants to play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix and have this old school, soulful sound. Like, how do I market that? How do I sell it? Was there an effort by some people to kind of nudge you in a direction other than you found yourself?
I mean, everybody has their opinions. Everybody has their thoughts and feelings on the artist I should be. Oh, you should do songs like this. You should do songs like this. And I've tried them all. I've done everything because I love all types of music, and I'm not afraid to, you know, challenge myself. But when it was 2016, or 2015 really, and I was finally finding who I wanted to be as an artist, I realized I needed to make what was most authentic to me that fit into the world of what was going on in music at the same time. You know, you never compromise yourself, but you learn. And I had to be a student of the game, a student of what was happening in music. And so I did that, and I listened to a lot of artists like Drake and Jhené Aiko and Bryson Tiller at the time, and so many different artists. And I really admired that sound, and I thought this might be the lane, this might be the sound that I would really like to make an introduction, you know, into the world with, and that was how Volume 1 came to be.
So tell me about the name H.E.R, because that's part of your evolution as well. Why you decided to go with that, and what the significance is to you?
You know, with H.E.R, it was like a time in my life, of course, when you're in high school and, you know, you're changing and you're going through all these things and boys and, you know, all these things that are part of life, right? And I always watched, like, the women that I grew up around, and I always said, you know, I'm not going to be like them. I'm not going to, you know, fall for the wrong guy. Like, it was like a hopeless romantic way to think. Or I'm not going to be that vulnerable, and, you know, I'm going to be like this type of woman, and whatever that means, you know, when I was a teenager trying to be a perfectionist. And then I realized that it's inevitable to fall for the wrong guy, or, you know, to make mistakes, or, you know, to have feelings that are, you know, valid, because it's part of life. You know, it's inevitable to go through changes as a woman and to be imperfect, you know. And yeah, I decided, you know, I really would like this music to reflect that period of time and all of those things, and that's why I decided to go by the name H.E.R. And it was also a way to make people focus on the music, because sometimes we listen with our eyes and not our ears, you know, and I really wanted the music to be the center of attention, not, you know, my look, or how old I am, or, you know, where I'm from, and all of those things, what I'm wearing, who I'm dating. I just didn't think any of those things matter. I always wanted to get back to the art and to the music, and that's why I decided to just have a silhouette as the cover and for it to be called H.E.R.
And do you think that has worked for you in terms of people sort of just being like, man, she can play, she can sing, and that's all I need to know about her?
I think so. And I mean, I definitely think people, you know, were like, wow, the music, you know, it's all about the music. And now I feel there's an organic, you know, kind of reveal of me and who I am as a person, and, you know, as an artist, and you know, just a little bit more of the details, a little bit more of my face, you know, here and there. But yeah, the music was the forefront, and I'm happy that that's the driving force here.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. The new cover, we finally get to see a little of your face on the cover.
A little bit of my face.
And that's by design. Here's a little peek.
Yeah, it is. You know, they say eyes are the window to the soul. My music is the window to my soul. You know, but here's a little peek into my soul.
So what do you think, now that you give us a little peek, people should know about you that they don't know about you through all these years of listening to your music, as you open yourself up a little bit?
That's a really good question. I don't know. That I think the major thing is, like, don't take yourself too seriously all the time. Really have to enjoy this. I find myself like forgetting to just be in the moment, you know, and I'm working on that. But I think people need to know that, you know, I don't take myself too seriously. I take my art and my expression seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously.
Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this?
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We began our Across America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Our week-long journey across America, from Washington, D.C., outside of our nation's capital, you rarely see.
It's your last move.
Was talking smack part of this? People really don't know what's going to happen. Really, a dozen hours after the eye roared ashore. More good people than bad people, you know, right? 5 seconds. 4, 3. There is some late-breaking news 4 hours into the Iowa caucuses by the Panther deliberations.
All right, it just did too.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
I mentioned your Grammy this year, which you won for I Can't Breathe.
Yeah.
I was talking last week, we had Trevor Noah on the show, and we were talking about doing comedy in this year that didn't feel very funny, and how you address everything that's happening in the country. So the song obviously addresses what's been happening in our country, not just for the last year, but for generations.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to make music in this last year, as you would watch the news or see something happening in the streets and want to have something to say about it?
Yeah, it was a tough year. I actually didn't create a lot in the first half of the year because it was just so like, I had my whole year planned. I was going to do a bunch of shows, and it all just came to a stop. And that's very scary. Like, okay, we have no idea what's going on. So, you know, when the summer happened and the George Floyd protests were happening, of course, we were all affected by it. But it was just like this new awareness and like this, you could not escape it. You couldn't say, oh, you know, I'll read about that article later, or I'll, you know, you could not avoid it. So seeing that, I ended up just calling H.E.R. Thomas, who I write with all the time, but we're friends. You know, that's like my big sister. And we were just catching up. We started talking about, like, isn't this crazy? And she started talking about her pain. I started talking about my pain, and just, you know, just the fear that we both had. And suddenly we ended up writing a song. My guitar stays next to my bed in my mom's house, and I was at my mom's house during quarantine, and I picked up the guitar, and we just started asking, you know, those questions, like, to ourselves, like, how do we cope when we don't love each other? What is a gun to a man that surrenders? All these things that we really felt, and it kind of just happened organically, and I ended up recording it in my room. You know, I was like engineering myself, and the dogs were barking. I had to wait for a second and then continue recording, and you know, and I just felt like, wow, okay, this is something that I want to put out there because it reflected how we felt.
So the song of the year was recorded in a bedroom in your mom's house.
Yes, it was. Yep, absolutely.
That had to be incredibly gratifying, though, to hear your name called for, not just for that song, but for what it was speaking about, to be the song of the year at the Grammys.
You have no idea. So I didn't expect it to win. You know, I really didn't. I was like, oh man, these are all amazing and, you know, incredible artists. I just wrote the song in my room, you know. I didn't.
That's cool enough, and then you win an Oscar.
Yeah.
On top of it. I mean,
it's crazy.
What was that experience like?
I mean, the next day after winning Song of the Year, you know, they were like, the Oscar nominations are going to come out. And I was like, okay, well, it's okay if I don't get nominated. I got Song of the Year. Like, it's all good. We got the nomination. And I'm like talking it down because I'm like, this is a huge deal. But I don't want to get, you know, I don't want to get my hopes up or anything. And we go, and it's super chill. And my mom's there, and she's all like happy, just happy to be there. We're meeting Angela Bassett. And then, you know, Zendaya calls my name. Yep. And, you know, everything just stopped for a second. Everything just stopped. I was like, did this really just happen? Like, did I just win an Oscar? Am I an Oscar winner? And of course, I thought about, you know, Prince winning his Oscar. I thought about just all of these things, the movie and the importance of that film that I was even winning for. I just felt like bigger than me. Like, oh my gosh, I'm being recognized for this specific moment. This movie based on an important moment in Black history, which was even more rewarding, you know, to be winning an Oscar for that. So there were all of these things going through my head, and I just couldn't even fathom, you know, what was going on.
I'm sure. So in the space of a couple of weeks, you got the G and the O and the EGOT. We just got to get to the outside now.
Got to get to the E
right?
and the T.
There's some talk that you might be doing some work on Broadway potentially, that you want to get into acting.
Absolutely.
Is that in your future?
Absolutely. I had a little part in the movie Yesterday with Jennifer Garner.
Yeah.
And I got to play myself, but I had some lines, and you know, they were all like, "Wow, you're such a natural." And I've actually loved acting for so many years, but music has been the main focus. So I'll definitely be on the big screen soon. I'll make some time for it.
No reason you can't do both, right?
Exactly.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
The Meet the Press Chuck Toddcast, free wherever you get your podcasts.
For breaking news in our changing world, download the NBC News app.
We began our Across America journey tonight, St. Louis, Austin, here in Nashville. From Washington, D.C., the site of our nation's capital, you rarely see. It's your last Was talking smack part of this? What are you doing for teachers who feel that they're being stretched too thin? Did you understand how prevalent hunger was in your own community? Sometimes the news can be difficult and overwhelming for kids to understand.
Will coronavirus come back next year?
So to help make sense of it all, we've created a newscast just for them. Man, you know a lot. We hope your family will watch Nightly News Kids Edition.
Make the most of your day with
Today in 30. We give you a mix of everything you love about our show in a mere 30 minutes.
Watch Today in 30 on your schedule, streaming every day on Today All Day.
Today is now a podcast, available every morning. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm curious, everyone seems to have a moment in their career where they feel like everything changed. Do you have one? Some people point to Rihanna posting the video with your song on in the background.
That was a big moment.
Was it?
Yeah, that was definitely a big moment. It was like, oh my gosh, like people really listen to my music. But I think it's not so much, you know, social media really. It is, but it's more so when I'm really with the people. You know, when I was on stage opening up for Bryson Tiller in 2017 in Atlanta. This was my first show. You know, well, not my very first show, but my first show on a tour after I released my project. Everybody was singing the lyrics. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people know the lyrics to my songs? Like, we're all freaking out. Like, did you hear them? You know, like they were really singing along. And I knew at that point, you know, that I was really getting a core following, like a group of people that really love my music. And then fast forward, I'm doing a festival in Las Vegas, and there's people with cowboy hats in the audience singing all the lyrics to my songs. And I'm like, okay, this is crazy. You know, it's so much more than I thought. But it just shows you, you know, music brings people together. And I didn't think I would have the ability to do that. But I see it and I feel it.
I thought the same thing watching you at the CMTs with
Yeah.
Stapleton. That's a country audience, and they were singing along. And you've got fans across the spectrum, and you've been smart. You've come up in this generation where, you know, you don't have to focus on the radio as much, right? You can do streaming and social media. Does that make it easier for an artist to be able to just put your stuff out directly in some ways?
Definitely. When you use social media as a tool, I think it definitely makes it easier. Like I kind of built this thing. We built this like kind of like a rapper, you know, where you put out a mixtape and you just grind. And it was a lot of, you know, posting, and it was really word of mouth, you know, like, and then really getting on the road and just touring. I toured for like 2 or 3 years, you know, and just on the road and doing my thing. So, I definitely think it makes it easier, and it's hard. There's so much out there, and you could get discouraged. But when you are totally your authentic self and you put yourself out there, anything is possible, you know. And there's somebody out there that is looking for somebody like you to look up to, you know. So you got to tell yourself that.
That's a great message, because I think a lot of people are trying to be something they think will be popular and will make people like them.
Yeah, no.
And you get lost doing that, don't you?
You get lost, and then you regret it, because you're like, why didn't I just stick to my guns? Why didn't I just be who I am? You know, and that's part of life. We all have, you know, a hard time being who we really are, and being afraid of you know, standing out too much. But when you realize standing out is your superpower, and that you're actually helping other people by standing out, you know, helping them be comfortable in their own skin by you being comfortable in your own skin, then you have impact.
I know you've got sound check in a few hours, basically, because you have to get up
Pretty
so
much.
early for the Today Show, so we'll let you go. But how much fun is it going to be, not just tomorrow morning, but this summer and into the fall, to get back on a stage and just hear those audience sing your songs back to you again?
I'm so excited. You have no idea. I'm like, let's get to it. Let's get on the stage. No, I'm really, really excited. It's been a long time, and we've lost a lot in the past year. And of course, I've been blessed to still be able to do what I do. But there's nothing like being in front of a real audience and having that connection. So I can't wait.
Well, I'm so happy for your success. It's great to see somebody true and real and so talented succeeding the way you are.
Thank you so much.
Congrats, and we'll see you on TV at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Michael, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Willie.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for letting me.
So I want to talk about your special, which is great. I told you I just finished watching it.
I can't believe you watched it. That makes me happy.
Of course I did.
Good. I get a kick out of people watching anything I'm doing.
Is that exciting?